name says it all. A dynamic, lively community in a productive surrounding. Hospitality is key. Therefore, our MyHive team actively provides support at all times. MyHive focuses on innovative prime office concepts to deliver excellent infrastructure to our tenants to exceed their expectations.
Thank you. From here on, it's members only. With your membership card, you are allowed to pass and enjoy all amenities. My membership is for all of those who do not need a fixed desk. You can use it at any MyHive location and get access to the MyHive community, the MyHive app, and of course, the MyHive lounges. Talking about MyHive lounges, they are perfect to take time off and relax. But wait until you have seen my desk. You enjoy the advantages of a shared office, and it's bookable from 1 month. We are on a 3-month assignment for an IT company, and my desk is the perfect match for me and my colleagues.
Hey guys, do you want to join us for coffee in the MyHive lounge after work?
Sure, why not?
Cool. Sorry, I'm in a bit of a hurry. We've got an architectural competition coming in a few days, but I'll show you my room. It's actually the perfect solution for a small team, or even a larger one. It's a private room with all the amenities of a shared office.
Thank you.
Sure. And you can book it for as little as 1 month and 2 desks. Sorry, I'm off to a workshop in the conference room. I'll see you later. Whoops.
Oh, never mind. That's the nice thing about MyHive. It's full of opportunities. We are a listed company with over 150 employees in a highly competitive market, always aiming for the top. And that's why we choose my office. We need tailor-made solutions that are state-of-the-art when it comes to interior design, top-notch IT infrastructure, and a high-level security. I have to go to a meeting. Come and join me.
As you can see, we have the costs completely under control.
Mereu implicat în coordonarea afacerii tale? Îți venim în ajutor cu pachetul pentru digitalizare de la Mastercard. Ai sprijin juridic, tehnic și pentru promovare, prețuri preferențiale pentru beneficiile oferite angajaților tăi, asigurare gratuită pentru cumpărături online, acces exclusiv în locațiile Mastercard Business și la evenimente profesionale și multe alte beneficii. Descoperă-le pe toate pe mymastercard.ro. Cere acum cardul Mastercard Business de la emitenții parteneri.
My parents knew from the first moment what they want. A beautiful house by the forest, a peaceful family life, and a girl. They had me. Born and raised here in the most beautiful place in the world. Home, as I call it today. I grew up with Mishu, my four-legged friend, and Misha, the little tree planted by me and my father in the yard of our house. Nature and fresh air gave me energy to explore everything that moves around me with my lifetime friends, and to enjoy walking to school in the mornings. And sports. Here I enjoyed the largest and greenest playground. Here we gathered the most beautiful memories with parents, grandparents and friends. Here I learned how wonderful it is to make friends for life. I admit, growing up here, I always felt that the world is mine, that I have everything. And I grew up having my family close. My life story is like a marathon. It started out full of energy. And as I go along, I'm still recharging my batteries. From everything I see and live, here and now, every second. I'm Toma, and my story and
Hello everyone, I am Cătălin Alistar, General Manager of Business Review, and I would like to welcome you all to our 8th edition of Foreign Investors Summit. As you all know, we wanted to have a classic conference, but the latest restriction forced us to move fully online. Anyways, we will have 2 days of discussions and debates, structured in 4 interesting panels. Without any further ado, I would like to introduce Mr. Bogdan Ion, Country Managing Partner, Ernst & Young, Romania and Moldova, and COO Ernst & Young Southeast and Central Europe and Central Asia, who will open the summit with an important, much-awaited keynote speech. Thank you all and enjoy it.
Thank you very much for the kind introduction. Hello everyone. Good morning. Good morning, the speakers and guests at the Foreign Investors Summit. Happy to be together, even though we are only virtually. In the following minutes, I will try to outline some of the opportunities and challenges of improving Romania's competitiveness. I believe this is a topic on everyone's mind, either local entrepreneurs, foreign investors, or state representatives. At the same time, I think we should not deny the reality. We face the critical issue of high mortality rates due to COVID. We continue to experience a political crisis coupled with record high energy prices. However, even though it may not be easy now, we should also consider a longer-term view. Coming now back to our topic of competitiveness, the questions are, how do we see ourselves competing as a country? And what are the key drivers for growth? Do we look forward at a growth model primarily based on manufacturing or rather services? Romania seems to be expanding in both, like Poland, and this is a really favorable development. As you can see in the slide, can we go to the next slide, please? Another good development is the high share of IC&T in value added created. And we are ranking well. Let's go. Let's go to the next slide, please. So now, moreover, as you can see in the next slide, let's go to the next slide. The growth of exports in Romania and other CE countries has for many years exceeded the growth recorded in Western European economies. Here again, Romania is scoring well. Let's go to the next slide. So, however, in our view, Romania's competitive approach has been mainly based on cheap labor and technology adoption, supported by foreign direct investment. In the context of economic convergence and increasing labor costs, these growth drivers are slowly exhausting. Therefore, Romania needs to compete increasingly on quality and less on low cost. And it's crucial to raise labor productivity. This, among other factors, requires improvement in the areas of education and healthcare, as we all know. And we also know that more foreign direct investments could still be attracted if institutional framework and infrastructure were improved. Addressing these 4 areas where we significantly underperform would most likely lead to better technological absorption, but also generate domestic investment and innovation, where we also score very low. Indeed, according to the European Innovation Index, Romania is the least innovative EU country. We are lagging well behind the EU average in the vast majority of indicators, other than internet access, venture capital, medium and high-tech exports, and sales of innovative products. Demography is also a huge challenge, also in the long term. Let's go to the next slide. As you can see from this slide, according to Eurostat, we might record a 37% drop in active population by 2060. And we are placed towards the extreme end of the spectrum. This will most likely translate into a shrinking domestic market and possibly an existential crisis for our economy. Since aging of the population will also deteriorate. As you can see from the next slide, let's go to the next one, please. The ratio of people aged between 20 and 64 to people older than 65 is projected to fall to 1.6 in Romania in 2060, down from 3.2 in 2020. And this trend will be below the EU average. Next slide, please. So, if we are to address all these challenges, including the existential crisis of the domestic markets in the years ahead, this would mean to start now to strategically transition towards a knowledge economy. When we say knowledge economy, we might think of Silicon Valley and high-tech startups. But this is just a partial image. A knowledge economy would imply one in which innovation, either by adoption of available technologies or by local innovation, would manifest and spread across sectors, from agribusiness to heavy industry, while we encourage intellectual property creation and retention in Romania. Focusing on the knowledge economy transition would help to achieve higher productivity, keeping in and attracting highly skilled labor in Romania. Having said all of that, let's take a step back for a moment. Over our history, the key topics for our development were modernization and westernization, at least since the 1848 revolution. Also, in the last many years, we have discussed about convergence and reforms to catch up with the West. Now in our recovery and resilience facility plan, we find the word modernization more than 150 times. We have almost always been in a following and catch-up mode, and in a mindset of modernization through replication, and not really innovation and fresh perspectives. Hopefully, reforms such as the state digitalization and the pension system reform, plus the funds available under this recovery and resilience facility, will represent important boosts in the transition to a knowledge economy, and in the same time will also address structural challenges. Now, in the pandemic context, and given the sustainability imperative, we need maybe more than ever public policies to guide the transition to a knowledge economy and move away from low labor cost-led growth. In other words, we need public policies to help Romania shape its own and unique knowledge economy architecture. Concluding, we are at an important crossroad as an economy and country. Even as individuals, we could feel like surrendering at times. As businesses and business people, we may never give up. It is our responsibility and duty to increase the pressure for accelerated change and bring long-term value to the Romanian society. I hope the discussions during the panels will help in moving forward the topic of Romania's long-term competitiveness and growth. Finally, I want to thank Business Review for challenging us to explore answers on this topic, particularly now. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ion. Your speech was truly relevant. The data and information was a little bit worrying, but also inspiring. And I know our guest will debate around it for the next 2 days. Thank you again. For now, I would like to give the floor to Mr. Jorg Menzer, partner and head of CE offices at Noerr, who is also the moderator of our opening panel. Please, Mr. Menzer.
There is no sound.
Yeah, I think it's we have a technical.
Sorry. It's a mute button. The mute button we always forget. So thank you very much for the opportunity to be here and to moderate the first panel. Indeed, Mr. Ion, Bogdan, I think, touched the main issues. He made a very good look ahead, and it sets the scene for our panel, which is looking at the bouncing back from pandemia and pandemic impact quite well. Because what we do now after the pandemic, hopefully next year will slowly decrease in its impact, determines what the future of our country, of Romania and Europe will be. I'm very happy to introduce you to the panelists. We were able to invite Mrs. Lara Tassan, Zanin, Head of European Investment Bank in Romania, But before she and Ileana Gutu, Associate Partner of State and Economics by E&Y, Cristian Secosan, President of the Foreign Investment Council, and Cristian Ilie, Director General of InvestRomania, will speak to us, we will have a little welcome speech and a video remark of Mrs. Romana Chaka, Head of European Commission Representation in Romania. Please.
Thank you very much for your invitation to participate in this year's edition of the Foreign Investors Summit. Foreign investors are important for ensuring a robust growth of the Romanian economy, notably through economic activities with higher value added, undertaken by the multinational companies on the Romanian market. Given the focus of this year's summit to better understand where foreign direct investment stands and what are the hopes and concerns of foreign investors in Romania, I would like to speak about a source of hope today. This hope is the Recovery and Resilience Plan of Romania, funded through the European Recovery and Resilience Facility, which includes reforms and investments aiming to help the country recover from the COVID-19 crisis and create the conditions for a healthy economy. As you know, Romania's economic growth is estimated by the European Commission at 7.4% in 2021, outperforming the other EU member states. To remain sustainable, it is, however, important to ensure that the economic growth is supported by investments and reforms, and this is exactly what the Recovery and Resilience Plan brings. On 27 September, the European Commission has given a positive assessment of Romania's Recovery and Resilience Plan, and this is a key step paving the way for the EU to disburse a total amount of 29.2 billion euros to Romania under the Recovery and Resilience Facility by 2026. The Council's approval of the plan is expected to come soon, for 28th of October. Its approval will allow for the disbursement of 3.8 billion euros to Romania in the pre-financing 13% of the total value of the plan. It is a large and comprehensive plan with 6 pillars that go from green transition and digital transformation to economic, social and territorial cohesion, health and institutional resilience, and policies for the next generation. I would briefly focus on the green transition. The recovery and resilience plans have been seen by member states as an opportunity to deliver on the Green Deal, to make a huge contribution to achieving the level of investments that will be necessary to reach the ambitious green targets that were set of the reduction of 55% of greenhouse gas emissions by 2030 and carbon neutrality by 2050. This triggers, of course, a huge need for investment. There is a requirement in the regulation that 37% of the expenditure has to go to climate-relevant investments. And in this context, 41% of Romania's plan allocation is devoted to green measures. The measures in the plan have the potential to accelerate the green transition and protect the environment. They are expected to support Romania's decarbonization and energy transition objectives as set out in its 2030 National Energy and Climate Plan, and are a step forward in achieving climate neutrality by 2050. Let me give you some examples. 1.8 billion euro will go for urban mobility with infrastructure investments for a green and more secure urban transport. 855 million euro allocated for clean energy production, phasing out of coal and lignite power production, deployment of renewables and hydrogen. 2.7 billion euro will support the renovation wave with energy-efficient renovation and seismic renovation of public and private buildings. Finally, biodiversity and environmental protection measures amounting to 1.1 billion euro will include afforestation and reforestation, as well as other biodiversity measures for ecological reconstruction and species protection. Ladies and gentlemen, being a large and comprehensive plan, the implementation is not expected to be an easy exercise. In order to become a real success, it will need a continuous and concerted effort from authorities, but also from beneficiaries, including multinational companies and small and medium enterprises. The European Commission will support actively the Romanian authorities during the whole period of implementation, with view of supporting the economic and social resilience of Romania, of a robust and healthy economy with raised employment levels. Thank you, and I wish you a very successful event.
Thank you very much, Romana. It was very encouraging, and it laid out, I think, once more the way ahead and the challenges, but also the chances. Now let's turn to our panel. As I said, we are joined by 4 esteemed colleagues. Lara, Tassan, Zanin, as I said before, is the head of the European Investment Bank and therefore most qualified to explain even further what we just heard. Ileana Gutu, associate partner of E&Y, is in her daily work very much involved in issues around management consulting, asset valuation, and also obviously feasibility studies and impact assessments for businesses. Last but not least, Mr. Secosan, a well-known friend to investors in Romania, CEO of Siemens Romania and Moldova, but also now the president of the Foreign Direct Investors Council, Investment Council, FIC, will join us and will give us a perspective of foreign investors. And last but not least, Mr. Ilie, very well known with big investors at his side from InvestRomania, who probably plays not personally only, but with his organization, a very important role in the next years to attract those investments we still need to change the economy in the way that was just described. Let me start with you, Mrs. Zanin. How do you believe that the EU can really help Romania to achieve the needed transformation of the industry, also keeping in mind the challenges that Bogdan Ion just explained to us, aging, still lacking behind, also the question of corruption. We are still number 67 in the World Index of corruption. How do you see that can be achieved? And obviously the role of your bank.
So, thank you very much. Can you hear me well?
Very good.
Yes, okay. So first of all, let me thank Business Review for having organized this year again what I consider to be the landmark event about FDI in Romania, despite all odds, because this year, like last year, we were forced to go fully online few hours before the event. Let's hope that next year we will meet again in person. Regarding your question, I would say there is a short answer and then I will go with a long one. We, as the European Investment Bank, are the bank of the European Union, so the financial arm of the European Union, and we are active in Romania since 30 years, trying to support the economic growth, a sustainable one for this country. We lend on average 1% of the GDP every year, going from loans to the public sector, to the private sector, up to the venture capital support through our European Investment Fund. The short answer to your question is that also, let's say, thinking about the very interesting presentation from Bogdan, is that Europe and the EIB can help Romania implement a vision on how they will remain competitive for the FDI. Why I say so, I think Bogdan has mentioned knowledge economy, he has mentioned public policy. Europe and the EIB do not replace Romania in, let's say, designing its own vision of how Romania will have to look like in 10, 20, 30 years. We offer resources, we offer advisory for free often in order to support Romania developing its own vision. I think we all run interesting surveys, both on the private sector, but also on the public sector. You will hear after our panel my colleague Patricia Wruuck presenting to you a very interesting outcomes of a survey that we have done on municipalities across Central and Southern Eastern Europe, and to see how and where investment are lagging behind. I think that these surveys tell us, of course, that there are FDI is driven by uncertainty. When we have uncertainty, being it after a pandemic or being it linked to the political context, FDI is very skeptical to move in a country where there is not such a stability. Yet again, these surveys also tell us that there are structural limitations for FDI to grow organically in the country, mainly linked to lack of transport infrastructure and availability of skilled labor force. All these elements are in our surveys, I think, have been there for many years. Now it's really, we believe, time to move for Romania to have an overarching vision about what Romania will be, what can become in terms of economy, sustainable economy, a greener and a more digital one, which investment Romania wants to attract, why, in which ways. We are having more and more resources. Yes?
Yes, sorry to interrupt you here. Let me just make one comment and to maybe invite at that point one or the other colleagues. You're right. I think the vision is so important for Romania, and we discussed it for many, many years in the past, also in this business environment and in this conference. The resilience and recovery plan obviously can be a platform, and it has been drafted nicely, also as explained by Bogdan, to tap into the money that is now available under this scheme by the European Union. But do you not have the fear that we end up in Romania where we have been ending up for so many years? Governments changing, plans are made, plans are revisited, plans are not followed through. And maybe Mr. Ilie, you can also give us here a little bit input already about your perspective, how we can move forward at this stage. But please, Lara, first you probably elaborating a bit more.
Yeah, I think that that's why I put the accent on vision. I think the opportunity that Romania has today, not only with the Resilience and Recovery Plan, but also what is called the Just Transition Fund, the Modernization Fund, and of course the usual structural fund programming 21-27, the opportunity is unprecedented. And thinking about FDI and InvestRomania, of course, we have these state aid schemes that are actually being deployed to attract FDI in Romania. We believe that it is now the moment to have an overarching vision on how better use these resources, because there are many more resources than in the past. And the sectors that we see as driving very much the competitiveness of Romania are first of all, of course, the tech, as we have seen, but also the agribusiness, where we believe that a lot of added value is being moved out of Romania, despite Romania being one of the larger producers of raw materials. And the third probably is about energy and the renewable energy. These three sectors we see as remaining as the opportunity for Romania to remain very competitive. But the real game changer is to have a vision from the government on how to best use their various avenues of resources that we have now available. And we are here to help to deploy those resources in a smarter and greener and more digital way. I will stop here.
Thank you. Mr. Ilie, I've addressed you before. Maybe you can give us your perspective compared to other countries like Poland, Hungary, Czech Republic, which are probably close to us from their development, even though we are started a bit later due to no reason known. They all, at a certain moment, also political parties, united despite their differences and obviously political different agendas, and forged a plan, a vision, and also committed and in fact kept this promise to see through even if governments change. Would that not be something that is now really needed, and that your agency, besides helping individual investors with their foreign direct investments, needs to voucher for?
Yes, thank you for inviting me in the first place, and thank you for letting me give my point of view. So, stability is very important. You talk about Poland, you talk about Hungary. Yes, they are our competitors, and they are very good in what they are doing. If you take a look on the investment, Poland and Hungary are quite good in attracting foreign investments. And I see now other countries like Serbia, like Bulgaria, coming back. Now, you talk about the agency. So for the moment, there is no agency. The InvestRomania, it's a commercial name, it's registered, but we are an entity inside of the Ministry of Economy. So we are working inside of the ministry. And as we speak, we are working to create a specialized entity, an agency for export promotion and attracting foreign investment. And also we start to elaborate a new national strategy for those activities, because the market is changed, the conditions are changed. And I took a look on what the Ministry of Research and Innovation did. They have a program called National Smart Specialization Strategy 21-27. There were also projects on the regional development agencies for smart specialization. And what they were doing, actually taking a look at what sectors are of excellence in their region, and that what measures should be taken to build an economical culture and innovation, and also smart development. So this is interesting because we need to know the potential and the need of each region should be analyzed, and then based on the national strategy that follows, they should be identified, and we should identify the real players on the market and invite it to invest. Of course, it's important, the quality of investment, use of new technologies, high performance, efficiency, sustainable economy, as we have said before. But in short, what we would like to do now is to have a proactive approach on promoting Romania as investment location. And first of all, we need to know what Romania needs and what can offer, and then to promote Romania intensively.
Thank you. Let's hope that this goes ahead. Mrs. Gutu, how do you see, based also on the data that was already partially revealed by Bogdan, the possibility of our country to absorb the money, also in earlier years, not even the normal EU money was absorbed. Do we really have the qualification in the country to execute the potential investments in infrastructure, transport, and do we also have enough capabilities in the public domain, in government agencies, ministries, local municipalities, to handle what is needed? Because it's not only to apply for funds, but it's to have the right project, to do it in time, and then also to execute and to find firms who will execute.
Thank you, and hello everyone. I will start, I think, with a positive note, because I'm usually a positive person. And I will start by saying that it is a fact that Romania's GDP in 2020 contracted less than EU GDP did. So from an economic perspective, we've seen 3.9 in Romania as compared to 5.9 in EU. If we look now at the future, as an economist, the indicator that I like to follow is GDP per capita. Basically, when you compare the GDP per capita of one country, as Bogdan also mentioned, the economic convergence, So you compare the GDP per capita of one country with the GDP per capita at EU level, you have a sense of the degree of economic convergence, as if you know where you are heading to, and no matter how winding the road up to there is, there are great chances that you will be there eventually. In terms of year 2020, Romania was at 44% gap as compared to EU average. This means, at the end of the day, a significant potential for our country, especially considering the last 10 years when we have consistently exceeded the average GDP economic growth rate. Where I think we should be cautious is not to create an economic convergence only because of a base effect, as economists would say. That is, we do not want a GDP per capita growth due to a decrease in population, and hence the result, which is GDP divided by a lower number, to be higher. What we need, as was mentioned already, is a sustainable growth, and I think the trends in demographics are therefore critical for that. Romania has capacity to absorb, and I would say it's also extremely competitive in terms of overall tax rate. Basically, we are at 20% out of the total profit, which is by far less than all the countries in our regions. But still, despite the strong fundamentals, Romania does not rank first in foreign investors' preference. We've seen for Hungary, Czech Republic, or Bulgaria displaying higher FDIs in the last years. And I think investors, what they should be aware is the state aid schemes available already and what is to come. And if we refer to two of them that are working very well already for the major investments, that is investments exceeding 1 million and job creation, that is applicable to when you create more than 100 jobs, I think they are really very relevant and already have proved the test of time that they are working. We see there maximum grants that can reach up to 37 million, with intensities quite significant, around 50% in most of Romania, and with budgets at stake quite significant. So yes, I think if we put all the pieces, I would say this is a favorable context for foreign investors to have a platform to develop.
Thank you very much, Ileana. Mr. Secosan, you are now called on the stage because you heard from the banking side what the perspectives are. We heard from the European Union what money is allocated. We heard from Mr. Ilie how institutions prepare, and we heard from Ileana also the good parts, but also reiterated a little bit the challenges: overaging population, loss of workforce. Now, as we all are involved with foreign direct investments, I don't want to repeat what we criticize every year. I think we should go with Ileana's positive moment because there is a great opportunity. How do you see it as a representative of the foreign direct investors community? Are we having a chance? Do we use it? You're on mute, I think. Mr. Secosan, I think you're on mute. Like me. Okay. No, we cannot hear you. Maybe the... Do you hear me? Okay, that's good. Okay, maybe the technique will help us. Now you're heard. Yeah, now it's good. Lara, maybe you can jump in just to check.
Yeah, I mean.
And maybe techniques can solve Mr. Secosan. Maybe you should redial in because I had the same problem at the beginning and I left and I went back in. But I'm sure that business review will help you. So Lara, you have heard what Ileana and also Mr. Ilie, Cristian told us. Do you think those are the right issues, and how do we get in all the contexts, not only catching up, but also being challenged with less population probably, with the pandemic still upon us. How do we get it even to be? Yes, now we can hear you.
I have tried again. Can you hear me now?
Yes, now we can hear you. But now you have to wait a little bit because I was just talking to Lara. One second, Mr. Secosan.
Okay. No
short answer, Lara. How can we make this even then a sustainable green economy? Because we jump one piece in the chain of development, which can also be great chance for us. You know, we can go directly in new technologies and investments.
Okay, how we can make it green? We have to incentivize. We were part of a very interesting green finance working group led by the Central Bank of Romania, a first of this kind of experience in Romania. And we have produced a final report, which is considered a very good guide for investors in terms of green finance in Romania. This is a very good piece of work that is actually for us one of the building blocks. So we have the resources, we have the potential, but we need clearly incentive to do so. And this, in that respect, we hope that as the EIB group, we will be in charge of deploying 1.2 billion euro to funds, both to SMEs, large caps and mid caps, so also to multinational companies that want to come to Romania under the PNRR. The incentive there is that we provide a collateral, because green investments, resource efficient investments are usually expensive and they erode the margins of the corporates. So they are not, after a first momentum where all the corporates were excited about moving into green investments, now they are a bit more reluctant because they see how this impacts their balance sheet. So the incentive is indeed that we provide advisory to companies in how to better identify and phase their green investments. Second incentive, we pass our pricing, competitive pricing, to them through commercial banks. And third, and very important, is about the fact that we provide collateral, high quality collateral, to banks for them to lend to the beneficiaries with lower capital requirements and therefore less expensive type of loans. These are clearly incentives that go only for green and digital projects, and the majority of it, let's say 60% of our 1.2 billion euro will be dedicated to green and digital only. And this we see the only way to go. I repeat, incentivizing the green investments both towards the private sector, as I mentioned, but we hope also towards municipalities, because we believe that the municipal investments will be one of the biggest drivers for actually having more green projects and a greener and more sustainable growth in Romania.
And maybe also for changing and educating of the general public. Now, Mr. Secosan, it's up to you. You have more minutes than before. Please give us your perspective from the Foreign Investors Council's perspective.
First, to check if you hear me. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Menzer. Jorg, actually. And so I said before, you were not hearing me, that I am also an optimistic person, but now I have more reasons to not be so optimistic, but I will still try to give you a perspective which I would consider realistic. First of all, about the Foreign Investor Council, we are an association bringing together approximately 120 of the most important Romanian companies with foreign capital. And the turnover of the companies we are inside our organization, it's representing about 20% from the Romanian GDP. So 1/5 of the Romanian GDP. We are trying to do all kinds of things for our members and also to support the authorities because we believe that direct investment, it's actually one of the levers which we shall use for developing the economy. And I believe that by stimulating the direct investments, no matter foreign or Romanian, Romania has a great chance to develop further. So starting with 2014, every 6 months, in September and in March, we do a survey with all our members. It's called the Business Sentiment Index. And this is done to find out the general perception about the business environment in Romania. And I would say the advantage we have, it's also to be able then to compare with other countries, because as I said, our members are most of them active in many countries or several different countries. The last we did was September 2021, and it was still showing a lot of optimism. It was done during the summer, and this optimism was mainly related to the future growth on the Romanian market. This was also reflected before in the discussion that our economy seems to perform properly and seems to have a good track. But in the meantime, there are at least 3 factors which I believe are influencing a lot the business of our member companies, but also the perception of the investors, again being local investors, but mostly foreign investors. The first factor is actually the pandemical situation. You see that we are unfortunately on the top of the list with the cases. I saw before notification, we have again more than 500 deaths yesterday, which is actually a disaster, I would say. And it seems that nobody is able to manage this, and the measures are late and not enough, and so on and so on. And this is one of the factors. And by the way, it's not theoretical, it's practical. We had to cancel some of our meetings we had planned here in Romania. I'm now talking for my company, actually, not as a Foreign Investor Council president, but we had to cancel some of the plans we had in Romania for the future months, because the people are not willing to travel anymore to Romania. With a rate of 15 or 16 cases per 1,000 people, nobody wants to come. The second, maybe, which is also having a big impact on the first I mentioned, it's the political situation. Here, as from all areas, for all angles, actually, as a president of the Foreign Investor Council, as a CEO of Siemens, but also as a person, I'm very concerned about what's going on. And unfortunately, during the last days, the situation did not improve at all. Actually, contrary, it's getting worse every day. And it's very, very difficult to see the end of it, or how this will, how it will be finally settled. And the third, coming on top of the first two and having also all kind of influences, external, internal, it's the energy crisis. The energy crisis, which is at the level, unprecedented level. Maybe now it's the time also to tell you about the white book we are having in FIC. We are also issuing every second year a white book with recommendations and with ideas related to many areas or to different areas. And here we have a chapter related to energy, and I can read some of the sentences if you want. It's written: because of the unfavorable legislation, new investments, mostly upstream gas and electricity production, have been scarce and many have been postponed. This is one of the reasons for the crisis we are going through. And the second phrase which I want to share with you is, or maybe two phrases from here, the Romanian authorities must ensure a stable legislative framework which provides certainty for investors. Changes to the framework must be made only following comprehensive consultation of all stakeholders involved, with due consideration of comments made and with impact studies on the proposed changes. The problem is here, as I said, also coming from outside Romania, but it's mainly us. Having in view all these things, I'm sure that if we do now again an analysis on the business sentiment index, the situation will be different. Still, to try to maybe to close on a positive note, Romania shows a lot of potential. It's a lot of money available. There are many things to be done, and this is actually the main driver for a foreign investor to come to Romania and to try to settle down here and to have businesses here. And from this perspective, it's in our hands, Romanian hands this time, to manage properly and to create the proper environment for the further development of the foreign investments.
Thank you very much, Cristian. That was positive but realistic, probably, at least for the time being. Now, I would suggest we use the next period we have on this panel to look at 4 areas. I would like to stay a little bit with the impact the pandemic has and how much this affects maybe the vision we talked about. Because the points you just touched are points that will determine the reconnecting to foreign investors. It will determine how the economy will develop in the next 12 months. And on one hand, we hear here the nice growth rates. It always depends from where you start to grow. I mean, I'm a lawyer. I'm not good in mathematics, but this I understand. We see the challenges now, supply chains interruption, energy prices or energy availability in the next months. And if there is a big impact due to the pandemic, this will delay probably also the start or the implementation or the opportunities that we need for the vision to be unfolding. A second part I would like to look at are some areas of industry, some areas of investment, because we know that Romania has been very much thought for by automotive investors. And it was interesting, Lara, that you didn't see that area as a driver for the future. At least you didn't mention it, unless we would count green sustainability and IT, which is very much impact for the modern mobility part of that story. Third, I think we should also look at infrastructure, because we have been talking in the last years a lot about infrastructure. And like you said, Cristian, when you live in the country, you are still seeing the shortcomings. You see also improvements. You are also very happy with little improvements compared to other countries, like a bridge built or a subterranean way for cars built. It's a great impact. Whereas we all know that certain parts of our country didn't benefit from certain economical developments due to lack of infrastructure. And here I would then like to discuss, do we really have the resources? Does Europe have the resources to build up quickly enough infrastructure that is probably needed, including access to the Black Sea for ports, and maybe also the connection to Western Europe for the Black Sea way forward. So those 3 things I would like to discuss, and maybe we can start with you, Mr. Ilie. The pandemic, how and I know that you're not representing the government, so please don't feel that I want to push you in a situation, but how the authorities have been reacting. On one hand, I think last year, due to this new virus and nobody really knowing what to do, it was not so bad. But we see now also the lack and the impact of what we should have probably all done since spring. It's not only Romania who has sometimes their maybe shortcomings, but a small country with with many people already have left, younger people, with investors needing to come and to visit, is probably more hit by this. So how do you see this for investments and for the development of Romania? And do you think with the drastic measures we now face again, it is understood also by the general public that the duty of getting vaccinated is not only for yourself, but for your country?
Yes, it's a sensitive subject. I could tell you what we have done. So the pandemic that started in 2020 limited our physical access to the potential investors. So we refocused on digital promotion. So this is maybe one of the positive things of the pandemic, faster development of this digital transition. So we knew that we had to do it, but finally you see now everybody has a computer. We are meeting online. There are a lot of transactions that happen online. So we organized personalized webinars for various countries. We selected based on the countries who already have investment in Romania, and also the champions in the field of advanced technologies. So we have organized last year seminars for Germany, France, Italy, Switzerland, Japan, South Korea, trying to explain to them what would be interested for them to invest. So, for example, Switzerland was interested in medicine and pharmaceutic, South Korea more to high tech. Anyhow, we have contacted, so we have worked internally and externally. Internally, we could rely on our agencies for small and medium enterprises, investment attraction, export promotion. It's a very long name. It's only one agency that are subordinated to the Minister of Economy. And it's very important also the connections with other national structures like the industrial parks, where we are going first when an investor is coming, chambers of commerce, professional and employees association, regional development agencies, and county councils and city halls. And also very important externally, we have the support, internal support of our economical counselors from the commercial economic promotion offices located in the Romanian embassies in various countries. And but you also work together with foreign embassies in Romania, bilateral chambers of commerce and other entities representing the business environment in those countries. I can also mention, for example, last year we had a protocol signed with MEDEF, the business association from France, Kotra from Korea. We worked closely with DAIC from Turkey, JETRO Japan. So we were very active. Even the pandemic was, but actually was maybe more easy because you could contact them online. You can organize the meeting without all this travel and administrative tasks and so further. Of course, it's very difficult. And coming back to what our colleagues said today, infrastructure is very important, and we do need to concentrate. And if we take a look at where the money from the resilience plan are going, well, it is clear that they are going on infrastructure, they are going on digitalization, and also a lot of money going on producing of electronic equipment. So we have indeed a lot of hope put on this resilience plan.
Thank you. Let's go back to Ileana. When in your work, do you see also the impact Mr. Secosan already kind of indicated that there is a lack of interest just because people cannot visit, cannot travel, of foreign direct investment? So what is your feeling of the long-lasting and longer-lasting pandemic situation in Romania, also due to the lack of vaccination? Other countries, if you travel, I was just in Paris on Friday, or I was in Hungary and so forth, people run around, they're quite relaxed. Even in Germany, it's getting more and more relaxed, whereas we are contracting especially now in the next 2 weeks, but beyond, and therefore send a message to others. We are not through, maybe less through than other countries around us or in Europe. Do you feel this? What is your perspective on the pandemic impact, also from a statistical point of view? How long will this push all the development back?
Yes, if we look on a short term, I think it is safe to say that we have also had to cancel some physical meetings, but I think many have adjusted to an online format. If we look from the perspective of, for instance, M&A market as a way to see the FDI coming and the inbound transactions that we've seen in Romania, this has held a consistent share even during the pandemic in the total overall market. In the first 9 months, I think we've seen that Romania remained an attractive investment destination for foreigners. We had inbound deals accounting, I think, for around 40%, 45% of all transactions coming from US, Germany, France, I think maybe Ireland also. So from this perspective, I think if history is to be a good predictor for the future, my bet is that the M&A trend and the inbound transactions, so basically investors coming outside of Romania to buy deals here, will continue. From the conversations we are actually having with foreign investors, I would go a little bit back again to the national state aid schemes I mentioned, because I think this helps us a lot when we discuss with them, because Romania does provide more competitive schemes than what can be seen in other countries in our region. So I was mentioning earlier grants of 37 million, whereas for Czech Republic, we see intensities between 15 and 25% that would apply to a 50 million eligible cost. So that would mean a maximum grant around 12-13 million. So this is also relevant. To be maybe a little balanced in terms of economics, what maybe it's worth exploring a little bit more is the discussion around rapid aging of active population and how the pandemic impacted here, because obviously this did not help. And here I would say that even it's true that in the last 10 years, we have seen decreases at both overall population and active population level. We urgently need active measures around stimulating birth rates, but also creating opportunities in Romania for diaspora, but also for other nationalities to come and work. How we create these opportunities is a discussion, but what I would like to underline is that it makes totally sense from an economic perspective to create them. As despite the surges we have witnessed in the last years, Romania is still competitive with an average compensation rate per employee at 35% of EU level. And yes, we would like to go out of this paradigm, but still benefit of it as much as we can. So we are now also from the perspective of return of employment, we call it. So when you compare how much is the output of one employee compared to how much you pay him, we are ahead of EU average and also some of the countries in our region. So this, I think, is also still an important element for any investor. Now, please.
Thank you for the moment. Lara, the money you have distributed over the years already and you have in your pockets to be distributed as collaterals or direct financing, is there any, not shift, but do you feel the need due to the health crisis in Romania to especially support this area? Because one of the reasons we also discussed this many years already for people to leave is education for their children, is health infrastructure. And I think this pandemic period, especially this year where we believed we were through or half through at least, showed very drastically also again in the last months and weeks how fragile it is what we have. And I from personal experience hear now many more Romanians who say, well, okay, we knew we didn't have a good health system before, but this is really outrageous that even in the last 10 months, money that was available, that was made available, was not even invested to try to somehow mitigate the impacts and to create, medical help, not only to get vaccines, that is, I think, quite good in Romania, but to treat the people who are depending. So no medication available and so forth. So would that not be now more urgent than ever to invest in that area, to have the stability for a country to do all the nice stuff we want, sustainability, green? I mean, it will be very green in Romania if we are overaging, if nobody lives here anymore, and the bears will roam the streets, but I think that's not what we want.
Thank you. Indeed, we have been traditionally present in transport, urban environment, and SME sector, but we are diversifying in the last 2 years towards the health and the education. So the short answer to your question is yes, it's now the moment to invest in health and education. Not that it wasn't in the past, but we need to invest as EIB on sustainable and long-term projects. And it is a good news of this year and next year that the EIB will support the first 3 new state-owned hospitals ever built in Romania in the last 30 years. It's a Iași, Cluj, and Craiova regional emergency hospitals. We have been providing advisory to prepare projects and lending to implement the project, together with a large contribution from the EU funds. We believe this can really show to the market that health investments can be done in Romania. It's not easy, it has been a long process, but you really believe that it's very important that good quality and research in the sector is being brought to the various territories of Romania, for the people not being obliged to come to Bucharest or to fly to other countries in order to get decent healthcare services and providers. We are ready to support COVID emergency investments, and we are looking into that. I often see a lot of bad information in Romania, bad and fake. From our point of view, health investments have been pursued and done in Romania in the last years. You can do more, yes, you can always do more, but it's not that nothing is done. Where they are really lacking, let's say, resources is the human resources bit. They don't have enough doctors and nurses to deploy the services they need. And investments take time. That's why in Romania, sometimes for many years, we couldn't progress fast enough with investments, despite resources being available and advisory being available, because the political context didn't have a long-term perspective. So that to keep committed for long enough to implement large infrastructure projects that require 5, 7, 10 years. Even a very good, complex, large hospital project requires, from the day you start planning it to the day you open and you cut the ribbon, easily 10 years. In Western European countries, in Romania, therefore, is at least 10 years too. But we are there to provide long-term advisory and long-term financing exactly to arrive to that point. Let me conclude on the other bit of the story. The aging, the ratio that we have seen, it's indeed a bit a way that Romania will face, like other Western European countries faced in the past, meaning that we have a larger part of the population aging. But on the other hand, I think Romania has to address brain retention. Why we don't have enough doctors and nurses? Because they prefer to go work in other countries. And that is why we think that investing in human capital, in upskilling, reskilling, and retaining the labor force is also something that has to be very high in the political priorities. It was possible since 2019 for us to support a good number of universities, giving them money to realize new labs, to realize new campuses for students, to pay more researchers, to pay better researchers, PhDs, postdocs, in order for skilled labor force Romanians to remain in Romania, to have the chance of remaining in Romania, actually contributing to building the human capital in the medium to long term. We believe that these are two essential sectors where we need to invest. And as you can see, the plenary resources, not only our EIB money, but also the plenary resources, and you will have for the first time in the EU structural fund programming, you will have an health operational program. So the resources are being channeled in the right direction. There is some projectuality in the public authorities, but we need a long-term commitment and ownership from the top of the public authorities, from the government, in order to stick to these priorities, to push for the project to be prepared as a priority and for the project to be implemented as priorities. Availability of resources in Romania is not the problem. I've heard earlier on about lack of investment in transmission, electricity. We have a lot of resources available even for transmission of projects. We don't see why the pandemic should delay a certain type of investment. The backlog and the infrastructure gap is such in Romania that there is no reason to delay investment today. Quite the opposite. We think that Romania should invest more, faster, now, in order to be ahead of the game when the recovery will pick up and the pandemic will slowly phase out.
Well, okay, now, Mr. Secosan, Cristian, again, there is this question, how do you see it? And you touched it, so you probably can be shorter or point us in a little bit different direction. The pandemic was also a big impact for production, for your members. They had to adapt. We all had to go online. Factories sometimes could not produce. There is also sometimes, and were conflicting making messages on one hand, what you can do. On the other hand, Romania was, which probably also led to the current situation partially, very much interested in not shutting down everything quickly like in other countries. So how did your members felt, and what were their reactions to the pandemic, and how do they have the outlook now? Do they say that is too unstable, the health system is on the brink, doesn't make sense out of this perspective to invest? Because also for foreigners it was probably more visible now what the reality is than it was before, because many of the foreigners flew home to go to the doctor and didn't go in a Romanian hospital. But now it's quite known that we are the champion in mortality and pandemic infection rates.
Yes, Jorg. So until now, so up to the fourth wave, I would have said that the member companies have managed properly the pandemic situation, and in most of the areas we have succeeded, or most of the companies have succeeded to keep the pace and to have the production and everything under control, more or less. Okay, with other impacts, and I mentioned energy. By the way, I was referring to power generation. It's good that we did the investment in transmission, because now we can import electricity. Otherwise, it would have been a huge problem. But power generation, except for the renewables, Jorg, where you have been involved, and you know for sure where we did something, but the rest of the power generation was neglected. Also this crisis of raw materials, which at the beginning was not impacting us so much, but now since a while it's becoming stronger. Also in this in the area of manufacturing, we are lacking human resources, and this is also under the umbrella of a lot has been done. Just to Lara, maybe to say that you are fully right. So a lot of things were done. We have put a lot of efforts in qualifying workers for the manufacturing in the past, and we see slowly the fruits of these efforts. I would just want to say two short sentences further. So one of the things which are not really maybe connected to the question, Jorg, sorry. First is that I have a statistic of the foreign direct investments here, and we can see very easy that the money is going where we have the infrastructure. So it's not so much money for the southwest and northeast region of Romania. So we have, or we as a state, we Romania, we have to do a lot of efforts to improve the infrastructure and to increase then the foreign investment money, or the money which are going in that region. And the last, and I like to finish actually always with this sentence, even if it's maybe not, it does not sound always very optimistic, is it's not about the fact that the investors are not interested, and here it's somehow maybe an answer to Ileana. I agree to what she said, and the fact that we are still, from an investment perspective, on a pretty competitive way. But the problem is how we can reduce the risk of investment, and how by improving the legal frame or modernizing the legal frame, we can reduce the investment risk. And also, and this I like to say always, to ensure the transparency and the predictability, because this is the main problem we have. So the risk of the investment, and in connection with the transparency and predictability. And this is all from my side. Thank
I
you.
think that is a very good way forward to the next kind of chapter I would like to discuss. I personally, and I'm a lawyer by origin, I think the legal framework in itself is quite good. Like many things are okay, it's also there about implementation and probably political predictability for areas like green energy and others, where sometimes also in the past laws changed too quickly. Ileana, do you believe that for the infrastructure which we talk about, be it energy, be it railroad, be it highways, where Cristian rightfully pointed out that the western part of our country has been developing nicely now due to the highway, at least up to Sibiu, Hermannstadt, it probably slowly goes from the west to the Carpathian Mountains, but beyond there is this gap physically in reality, and therefore those areas which are anyways not so well positioned due to distance and maybe therefore also education and other influences fall even farther back. Do you think that the municipalities, the governmental institutions have, let's assume they have the will, do they have also the qualifications and still also the people to implement a vision that, let's hope, with help of the recovery plan and all the other pressures now, would be developed? Because one thing is to sit in parliament or in ministries, be it the economical ministry, the financial ministry and others, and to develop a vision. You still need people to get those things on the ground in the planning phase. Lara pointed out that takes time, not only in Romania. The laws sometimes also there have to be still observed. We are not China, where hospitals probably can be built in 12 months, because we are still taking care of environment and we are not pushing away people. But all this assuming would go well, do we really have the people in municipalities and in state-owned agencies that can put down? Just a question and a comment from my side. What I've heard is that some projects will not be able to be implemented because there are no engineers anymore who can do a plan or can verify even a plan that is done by a third party. There are nobody trained enough to, as we all know, apply for certain funds because they don't know what to do. By the way, Lara, I think here the European Union and the EIB should put some money to really get those people paid and trained in order to be able to access what you offer. But Ileana, to you, please.
Thank you, Jorg. The short question would be that for sure they have the money or they have the resources to make this happen. In terms of question around the people, I think there are two components. What we can still find as human resource in the private sector and what we can find in the public sector. But I mean, I'm an economist, so I would say that always when funds are available, I would tend to say that medium-term solutions are being found around the money so that money are not wasted. And from this perspective, I think it is obviously that when we are having, for instance, because we have been talking about the RRF, we have these specific components for the private sector under the RRF, like capacities for electricity generation from renewable sources with a specific target. We have the discussion around the industrial chain of production, basically with the assembly of batteries, or the energy efficiency, because there was a discussion around the energy crisis that basically will determine an increase of consumption sourced from own production. All these are elements that are foreseen, money are put aside, and when we compare with other countries, we can say that from this perspective, we may be a little luckier. Okay, depends with whom you compare, but with some of them, we are. So if this money are put to work through projects that need to be mature in order to be addressed by 2026, I know what you are saying, and I also heard discussions in the market like, okay, we don't have enough engineers in order to do the renewable projects in short term. But I think we are not there yet. I mean, okay, there are discussions, but until we see an implementation framework to be able to access these grants and to see that these are not accessed because there are not enough people qualified, I would say that, I would hope that, yes, this will happen. From the perspective of the public sector and what is happening in the infrastructure, I would follow the same logic. There are significant amounts allocated. We have already seen there were advances made through the public tenders and all the projects that are happening. What maybe the problem is there is that for some of the projects, the feasibility studies are outdated. So it is again the timeline that you'll have to fit into in order to access this. So I would conclude by saying that for both private and public sector, as long as the money are allocated, there will be things that will happen and investments will arise out of this, because somehow economic resources are finding a way in an economy to make projects happen, even if this will not happen to the extent that we would hope. So the absorption is not, 100% as we've seen in the past. But still you create a mechanism.
Sure, yes, there will be always a move forward. It's a question if it's quick enough. Cristian, Ilie, as you have heard from Mr. Secosan, and we all know, it's the western part of Romania that benefited in the last years, 10, 20 years, most from foreign direct investments, from infrastructure being more easily implemented. What is your take right now? Do investors, especially in modern technology, feel that Romania is available in all its size, or do they still concentrate on Transylvania and the West, not only due to supply chains or just-in-time production, but due to infrastructure on one hand? And on the other hand, we all know that for some of the new technologies, be it around battery productions, you need also a lot of energy to get it done. Is our backbone, and Cristian Secosan pointed to that already, really strong enough? For example, as you know, Debrecen with a BMW factory in Hungary invests now hundreds of millions in energy production and transmission to be a place for battery manufacturing from China, from Korea, and from other countries. And they probably don't. Some of them even looked at Romania and they said, well, that is not so appealing. I know that you cannot talk about clients, so to say, as we all cannot, but how do you see that?
Yes.
It's not maybe slowly the train leaving the station and we come with all our investments and all our money available a bit late?
Yes, so I would like to add something at your previous question. So about the specialists and about the engineers, I'm seeing here that we are having around 130,000 graduate students every year from the universities of Romania. So we do have a university spread around the country. So we do have engineers and if our engineers are not enough qualified, of course there are a lot of European consultancy companies who are present in Romania and who are using Romanian engineers. I don't think this would be a problem, that there are no specialists able to fulfill and to finish the projects in Romania. Coming back to your question about the West, yes, the West is. Everybody wants to go to Cluj. Everybody wants to go. Why? Because the border is there, because the clients are there. Not only that, they have a better infrastructure. So the companies who are having clients in Germany, of course, they would like to go to Hungary or to Poland or to the west of Romania. And also the mentality is different there. If we take it historically, that side of Romania had already the cadastre already for 200 years. So the property is somehow much clearer than in the rest of Romania. There are different issues. I'm not going to tackle all of them, but there are investors. So, for example, for the green energy production, the people will not go there because the sun and the wind is mostly in the south east of Romania. So, if you want to have a power plant on photovoltaic or wind power, you will go in the south or in the southeast of Romania. The second question about the grid, yes, the grid is charged, so that's why we took contact with the industrial parks and we advised them to build their own farms of photovoltaic or wind production, because every investor that is coming is asking for green energy. They're not asking for coal energy or other. We're not giving names, but for example, we had an investor came to ask for its production facility more energy than the Porțile de Fier hydrocentral is producing yearly. So huge amount of terawatt of energy. And we do not have to forget that until 2030, we will need to quit production of energy on coal, and we will have to concentrate on other green technologies. If I remember, in the latest declaration of the Minister of Energy, he said that the nuclear power is still an option. Even France, I've seen, and Germany are looking somehow towards the micro powers, nuclear centrals, because it's green. We call green batteries, yes, but think about after 5 or 10 years when thousands of batteries should be, I don't know, buried or recycled. It will be terrible. We already have this problem with the windmills. This equipment should be put somewhere when they are finished their lifetime cycle. So it's green is something very, very strange. If you think about the lithium that goes into electrical batteries, I know if you know how much waste is, probably you know, because you know the project. Anyhow, the grid should be also renewed in Romania, but I think that producing close to the consumption location, it's a better idea, so that everybody can assure its own independence. Let's take a look at the charging centers for the electrical vehicles. They all are this project is that is running now at the Ministry of Energy, Electric Up, is provided also with a source of energy. But of course, we need more and more. So energy, it's really an issue, and we'll see more about energy this winter. Yes.
Yes,
please.
that will be also changed. Okay, thank you very much. Now let's focus on the third area. What industries do we really can foresee in the next period to come to Romania, be it through M&A transaction, be it through foreign direct investments, and what do they look for? Before we go into those areas, and Lara, I would then also start with you, because you said, okay, that's where we want to go to, but we also have to look what we have or what's going on right now. So maybe you can give us there your opinion. Is automotive dead, or is it maybe one of the factors for transformation? One last question, and maybe Mr. Secosan, you can answer it. It's still around infrastructure. And Lara, maybe you can give me also your point of view. How about the connection to the port of Constanța and the Black Sea? Because we know that we are in a global economy, and we know that we are having access to a very interesting, naval way. We know that Chinese investors have bought many Greek ports. Would it not be making sense to use the Danube on one hand, but also maybe really railway connections to the west to generate in the port of Constanța and therefore in the south of our country economical growth? Or is it, and I'm now very mean, is it that the Western countries, some of them are not interested because they know that this could be really competitive, and they just kind of, be it Amsterdam or be it Hamburg, are not so interested in us having a real port? Cristian, maybe you can start, because Lara, it's a semi-political question. I give you more time to think about it, about the answer. Is it important for foreign direct investors, actually?
Sorry, I didn't get it now.
Would it be important for foreign direct investors to have this access, real access?
For sure. It's no question about. And maybe you remember there were discussions without talking about names or name of companies, about the way that some of the big producers in Romania can get out their products of Romania, and this is the problem of the infrastructure. Of course, the rail transportation, where a lot of money was allocated and a lot of money still to come, and I believe this is one of the good parts of our PNRR plan, and the fact that this infrastructure was pushed a lot, and it's a lot of money for rail and for roads infrastructure. On the other hand, also the port needs to be modernized. So we have been involved with my company in some projects in the past. So there are many things to be done there, I'm sure, and it's a lot of potential. And I don't see it so much maybe as competition with Hamburg or other big ports or harbors, because it is somehow serving a different market and a different part of Europe, and I believe it's of big interest for many companies to have this connection. So from this perspective, I believe that a lot has to be done. And also Danube, you mentioned there were projects also for the Danube. in the past modernization done to be able to navigate with bigger ships, and I believe it has a lot of potential still in terms of infrastructure. But getting back a bit to what was said, and this is again an example from what we are doing here in Romania. We have looked into other possible locations for our businesses, and I have to go back just for 2 minutes, Jorg, to what we have discussed about the human resources. So it's a big need for IT people, and everywhere around the country, everybody's looking for IT people. It's a new now. There are new possibilities because of the work from home type of activity many companies are implementing. And I can tell you that we have in Siemens, we have people which are working no matter where, and this somehow gave us the opportunity to get new people on board. But all big locations like Timișoara, Cluj, Bucharest, and so on are full of companies looking for resources, and they are not enough. They are not enough resources for sure. And this is also creating a different problem because, and you mentioned it, and I can feel it also from the energy area mostly, but also industry. Because of people going or young people following so much this IT path, it's a big lack of engineers in other areas, energy and also manufacturing and so on and so on. So it's somehow coming together, and education. It's a huge it's a big, huge topic actually for Romania. We have to invest a lot into this too.
Thank you very much, Lara. Now coming back to this quick question around the south and the harbors, and railways, is that something? And Cristian said there is a lot of money and was money available. Again, not everything was probably really used or already executed. And both have challenges for the environment. Obviously, if you build big ships, big harbors, they are probably not so eco-friendly yet. And railways could be, but they need to be used, they need to be quick, they need to be on time. So the whole backbone needs to be modernized. And we still have, even in Bucharest, some crossings of railways where a poor lady hopefully doesn't fall asleep to lower, the protective bars for cars not to be hit. So also there is somehow this gap between part of the country being in the Middle Ages and on the other hand, programming the greatest apps and IT facilities quite large. I know you cannot solve with EIB everything, but you can influence, as you said.
So indeed, inland and maritime transport is a big priority for us at the EU Climate Bank. We believe that Romania would benefit extensively from developing the port infrastructure in the Black Sea, Constanța being, of course, the main actor there, as well as the Danube. Is there a problem, a political problem in the EU about it? Quite the opposite. Europe understands very well, and Rotterdam and the other ports in the Northern Europe as well, that the more the merrier. Of course, then there will be a commercial competition, and of course, this is where we believe Romania has to do a quantum leap. Why? Because resources are available. Definitely, inland and maritime transport in the EU Green Deal and going towards a greener Europe gets a lot of priority in terms of resources and in terms of advisory available. But you need to have a clear vision. I go back to my first point here. A clear vision from the government that this is the way they want to pursue. They need a corridor strategy to make the whole thing working. Why I said so? I was last week in an interesting conference about indeed the Danube River and the port of Constanța development. They are trying to expand on the cooperation with the Suez Canal. Why? Because they say it takes 3 days to go from Suez to Constanța. It takes 30 days to go from Suez to Rotterdam, yet the freights are going to Rotterdam. Yeah, because it's not only that the bit that counts, but what happens to the freights after they arrive to Constanța? They need to be handled fast, with less bureaucratic burden. They need to get fast into the network, either being inlet waterways or being railway. They need a terminal to handle the various freight, and this is what is lacking. Resources are there, but we still lack a vision in order to have a coherent investment plan around this vision, and I would say commitment and priority from the various actors. I would say top down, and I link here my answer to the capacity that you have highlighted earlier on. Our experience, 30-year experience in Romania, is the following. The capacity is somehow at working level in various public institutions in Romania. And where is not there, we are training roughly 1,000, 2,000 people every year for many years now. What is the problem? There are two types of problems. First of all, these people, after they have been trained, they leave the public sector and go to work for the private sector with the new skills they have acquired. But most importantly, if you ask them why you are moving, money is only one. Bigger salary is only one of the reasons. They cannot stand somehow the immobilism of the public sector environment when it comes to decision makings, to clear priorities set top down from the executive management in the authorities, but also, of course, the political management. And I refer here to the government and the various ministries. So it's indeed very, very important that this long-term commitment and priority and vision is decided at top level, maintained, and percolates the various institutions so that the people working in the public sector are indeed motivated and empowered to use their knowledge, because training is done and their knowledge is pursued, expanded, and maintained. There is also an issue of accountability and I would say attention for results. Working people would like to, they are very generous when it comes to developing strategies. I've heard Mr. Ilie mentioning earlier on, we have contributed to the competitiveness strategy for Romania with our experts. But too often, these strategies and various documents, which are very well prepared in Romania by the civil servants with the support of various institutions, including us, they remain too often documents in a shelf rather than being implemented, because there is not enough or not yet the right accountability and attention for results in the public sector in order to make sure that what is a nice idea or even a very good strategy is eventually implemented, and resources are fully allocated towards that vision and that strategy.
Well, thank you very much, Lara. That been almost a final word and also encouragement. I will skip this discussion about industries. I think automotive industry, maybe one little quick comment of you, Mr. Ilie, will still strive and push forward. We see, at least it's my impression, also investment in new technologies, be it battery packages, be it electric motors and components. So I think here maybe Romania has an advantage of having received later investments and can therefore also now absorb more modern investments, not to say only that Ford and others want to invest. What I really would like to do now is the following. Let us probably revisit the visionary part. And Mr. Ilie, I second what Lara just said about the public sector. I mean, I met so many, including yourself, but so many greatly skilled, dedicated, and working a lot of hours, public servant, be it in the subsidy scheme area, Ileana also referred to, where we are quite active, be it in other areas. So you really find there people who are also able and willing to listen or to learn, like you said, Lara. But maybe we all should somehow discuss now for the remaining 10 minutes, how could we get actually what we all, as a final result from this discussion, see the vision and the steadiness of implementing the vision. How do we get in Romania leading politicians, parties to understand that it's in their interest to pursue something that holds longer than the next 24 hours, 3 months, next prime minister, next minister? Is it a question, and you know me since years now, about identification with your own country? Is it a question of being Mindru or not Mindru, proud or not proud of your country? Is it only political obligations and games that prevent this? So maybe without you making political statements, obviously that's not the place here. Mr. Secosan, as you are representing the foreign direct investors, and you also advise with the FIC governments, you make position papers. Don't we finally, after 20, 30 years, have the magic stick to create this vision and to keep it? And would the pandemic not be maybe also a good way to involve the younger people and to make it happen? Would this not be finally now the need to trigger politicians to understand that they are not playing games, that they play with lives, with a country? Do you think we can overcome this and create a vision, Mr. Cristian? And you can also formulate it as your final remarks for today.
Yeah, I will do so. I will do so, because this is something which shall actually reflect also it's not only the vision, but shall also reflect what we believe that will happen, or what we believe that we have to do in the future. It was mentioned before, but I think that everything starts from the education. So we have to start from the education system. We have to have better educated people on all levels, starting from the lowest level of education, going up to the to universities and so on and so on. We need to improve this a lot, and there are all kinds of initiatives, and it did improve a lot in the last years. And even if we, if I would put now a bit the cap of the Foreign Investor Council, even if we invested mostly in universities, as it was already mentioned, laboratories and whatever else, or in direct involvement in preparing all kind of classes with the students and so on. I mentioned before that we did also the same for the lately we did the same also for the workers and for the people which are involved in manufacturing, but also doing things which are not really directly connected to the business but to society. And I think this is the key. On the other hand, I have big hopes related to the new politicians, to the young politicians, which are mostly now educated people, and which are coming with a fresh attitude and with the will and the determination to do things for the country, not only for their own benefit, and thinking also about the development and thinking about the way Romania should look in the future. And this, I believe, shall be the vision, to be able to change something in Romania, to invest a lot in education, and to start from education, and to prepare the new people of Romania and the new politicians of Romania.
Thank you very much. Lara, what is your takeaway? Is it ESG, environmental sustainability and governance? Is it the vision you already nicely described? Do you think we need to invest more in education, or is it more about a general change of, not a general change of mindset, but unleashing, I think, the truly and justified pride of Romania to be proud of itself and to stand up and to say, that's my country and I will take it in my hands, and to get involved and to argue in a nice way, like you see it in other countries, because we see it when there are demonstrations on the streets, it's full. So there is a lot of political mind and thinking and wishes to express, no matter which party, which areas. It is not important. I know it's a difficult question, so you can.
Well, I think I have already said where the investments should go and why also they are high in our priorities which are in line with the EU policies. I do really believe that all these investments will ultimately lead to hopefully to a change in mindset. But these should come, let's say, should take place only when there is a critical mass, sufficient critical mass for a change of this mindset towards believing that accountability and results matter. I reckon a certain cynical approach of Romanians. They protest, but then if actions do not follow words, they are kind of seeing more of the same and they ultimately give up. I do believe that we don't have any other choice than just pursuing, not giving up, as Bogdan said. It's our role of all the stakeholders that we have here today, and not last Romanians, both the new generation and the current generation, that with all the stakeholders driving or trying to drive the process and steering the process in the same direction, with a higher and higher pressure coming from Europe, both in terms of resources to be deployed, but also at the same time to priorities to be drawn upon. Today is clear that the green and digital priorities are there, and this will also somehow put pressure on Romania to turn the head towards those priorities. So stakeholders remaining there and pushing for the same shift, higher and higher pressure from the envelope of resources and the priorities set by Europe, and last but not least, I hope to see in the future an increased willingness and care among Romanians for accountability and results. And whenever results are not there, to express their dissatisfaction. This goes from daily life, when they don't receive the service they pay for in the shops, up to the politicians and the government that they see rolling out one after the other in this country. It is true that it's ever more difficult to bring people to believe in the political life of their own countries, but in Romania, I do personally believe that this mindset shift has to happen and has to be bottom up, as I said, calling for accountability and results in everyday life will contribute ultimately to a change in the mindset, and hopefully in caring and believing that you can change, you can have a little impact in making the future of your country better tomorrow, every day, with every little action that you do. Not only for us as stakeholders, but really for the people of Romania. That's why we keep investing in human capital and in supporting the human capital development of this country as well as infrastructure.
Thank you very much. Before Mrs. Gutu will have the final word, not only because they are gold sponsor, platinum sponsors, E&Y, but because I think she has contributed during this discussion greatly with her expertise. Mr. Ilie, I think you heard the wishes, and I know you personally well, and I know that you're one of those examples who really are accountable, who really thrive for, who really work in difficult circumstances for the well-being of this country, like many or most of your colleagues, many even in politics. So we should not paint a dull picture. What is your, let's say, wish or your prediction? Make it short because we are running a bit late. We started later, so I have 2-3 minutes, but I want Mrs. Gutu to have enough time for her final thoughts.
Yes, political decisions are not always popular. So good political decisions are not always popular. I could say even that good political decisions are never very popular. So giving free money to the people doesn't mean that you make them happy. You just make them dependent as different programs for startups or other things happen. It's a discussion that we are not going too deep in here. Anyhow, I have a short message about the Port of Constanța and using the Danube strategy. So developing the Port of Constanța, Rotterdam was interested in developing the Port of Constanța, and they even had a whole strategy with multimodal hubs across Romania. But yes, due to political situation and due to the Dutch, to the Holland position on the European level, this project stopped. It's not a question that it was not beneficial for Romania but you know, politics above the other was. Now, money and the fiscal facilities are not everything. So we can see that in Hungary or Poland, the intensity of state ads is less than in Romania. This is valid also for people and companies. So people would rather look for work environment, possibilities for career promotion, health and level of life, while the companies will look to infrastructures, flexible administration, and legislative predictability. So it's more complex than that. Anyhow, I think that for Romania, adequate education policies, legislative predictability, adequate political policies for the state aid, retention of the labor and repatriation of the departed one, a more intense promotion abroad of Romania. I think those are priorities for Romania, and the sectors where can be invested with success in Romania. I can count, you know, the automotive and subassembly, the transport infrastructure, production and storage of the energy, hot issue, circular economy, traditional agriculture, bioagriculture, and smart agriculture. Tourism, we have a lot of potential in this one, and hotel. Digital transformation should put its sign. Creation of the 5G network, use of artificial intelligence, implementation of the smart city. All those things are fields where an investment would be successful. And I would like to close by saying that even if Romania is modernizing and is maintaining clear advantages for the investors, so qualified labor at a competitive price. We have available natural resources, a market for 18 million inhabitants, and advantages of fiscal policies, state aid in form of fiscal facilities and grants, fund grants. So I think that Romania it's a place to be, and also very friendly people. Thank you.
That's true. That's true. Thank you very much. Now, with this note, Ileana, share with us your vision. Do we, with all the help that is now there, all the money that is there, and all the discussion we had today, what is your, let's say, wish or your closing remarks, please?
Thank you very much. I would close by saying that close the circle I started with, the GDP growth rate and what we have in terms of potential as a country. And I would say that we need to unleash it. Basically, I think all the discussion and all the vision is around how we can unleash the GDP potential growth rate that is still for Romania. I would fully agree with Mr. Secosan that demographics is where we should start, and not only education, but also these measures around stimulating natality, which, okay, take time to harvest. Therefore, one common action would be to increase the productivity. If we look at increasing productivity, then we would need to have an entrepreneurial vision, which is not really connected, as also from the keynote speech of Bogdan, with the aging that we are seeing in Romania. Therefore, I think we are only left with the alternative short term of expanding the workforce, maybe through attracting more women in the labor force, address immigration issues that has been said, and also increase immigration. But just to conclude in a positive note, what I think is very, very important in general as a principle is to be aware of the things that are going well and try to adjust to what is not perfect, because in any line of our activity or life, this is the case. So if we look at what is positive now in Romania, there are a lot of money flowing in through the state aid schemes that are already available, through the money that are flowing on the sectors that we have discussed. Let's try to grab as much as we can from these sectors and try to adjust to what is not so perfect to get the most out of it, with the ultimate goal of unleashing this GDP potential that I think we all agree Romania still has. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the panel to have shared their views. My final word would be quoting Gandalf from one of the Hobbit movies I just looked up over the weekend. He says at a certain scene that every little friendly word, every little reach out to somebody who needs help, and every belief in the future will keep the dark away and the darkness and will push it back. I think that is what I wish for. And I wish that certain decision makers, certain political leaders saw this transmission, the first section, and understand that a vision means that you can stay for eternity in the memory of your country and of your people. If you look short term, you will be forgotten and you will not be considered as one of the great leaders as we have them in all countries and all nations all over the world. Well, I hand now over for the second panel. I thank also the audience for keeping with us, and I would like to pass over to Patricia Wruuck, economist in the economic department of the European Investment Bank. I thank you all for listening also to me, and I hope to see you soon in person. Thank you very much.
Many thanks for the introduction. I hope everybody can hear me well, and hopefully also see the presentation in a minute. Wonderful. It's a pleasure to be here, albeit only virtually. So what I will do over the next couple of 15 to 20 minutes is I will open up the view a little bit and have a look at local investment, municipal investment that really matters to people on the ground because it affects their daily lives. And I will do so starting with the European perspective. So let's have a look at what is going on at a municipal level when we talk about investment. Where are the needs? What are the barriers? And what about the transformative areas in particular? So when we think of climate change, how is this being tackled at the local level? What is happening on digitalization, which is obviously, I mean, over the last couple of months, it was really a key factor shaping our daily lives. So let's have a look at what are the differences here when we look at across the EU. And what I will do is I will show you results that we collected at the EIB, and this is basically research that is based on 2 surveys. One we conducted last year, and we actually asked municipalities all across the EU how they see their municipal investments, where they see needs, where they see gaps, and what are the barriers that also keep them from investing, to understand better what is happening on the ground. And the second I will draw on is our annual investment survey, which is a survey we do with corporates. So every year over the summer we ask around 12,500 firms. Again, it's focused on investment, on their needs, what they do, but also where do they see barriers and problems. So if we can switch to the next slide, maybe. So these 2 surveys, they are the basis. A quick look at the macro first thing, just when we are talking about municipal investments and the overtime trends across Europe over the last couple of years. Now, obviously, we see a slump that followed the global financial crisis. So overall public investment and also municipal investment, which is the blue bit, that slowed in the aftermath of the financial crisis. But then also since 2017, around these dates, we are seeing a turnaround. So local investment had been picking up, even though one has to say that this happened across the EU member states at very different dates. And local investment was much quicker to recover in most of the countries in Northern and Western Europe, and with the impact of the financial crisis being much more longer lasting and austerity politics in Southern Europe, for instance, it really took much longer to see local investments recover. Now, the bottom line of this is basically also that you need to keep in mind that we saw several years with really subdued investment activity at the local level. Before then, we saw a turnaround and some years where things seem to get better, but then, of course, the COVID crisis hit. So this is to keep in mind, and if we can move to the next slide. Of course, the municipal needs and the local conditions, that very much differs depending on what municipality, the demographic composition, your location, the condition of roads. So there are 1,000 things that really play into this. So what we did with the municipal survey was really an opportunity to get a much better understanding. What is the quality of the existing assets, and what are the gaps and needs? And this is part of what we asked. So if you could switch to the next slide, please. Thank you, because there you can see some of the results. We asked the municipalities what they did and in what areas they invested, and also how they see the adequacy of their investments over the last couple of years. And basically what we see here is that already before the COVID crisis, municipalities have started to invest more in digital, in investment around climate mitigation and adaptation, but also in social infrastructure. So they were starting to invest more in these areas. But at the same time, what we also see that the investment needs, despite this increased activity, they were still substantial and large, and many municipalities actually reported gaps in several of the investment areas, which is basically the red bar you can see. There's almost half of the municipalities, they name you more than 3 areas where they see that probably the investment levels have not been adequate in the past. Now, this is also another thing I think that's important to keep in mind is that the adequacy of investment in the area of climate for mitigation and adaptation, taking measures in this respect. This is something municipalities also see a need to probably do more here. One area I would like to move to zoom in a little bit, if we can switch to the next slide, please, is the social area, where about 1/3 of municipalities across the EU actually report that they see gaps and think that investment has not been adequate. Now, social, this is a relatively broad header, and there are several important services and infrastructure that municipalities deliver within that area. And what you can see in particular when you start splitting it up, it contains areas such as social housing, as healthcare, the whole care infrastructure also for children and for the elderly, and also education, which is education infrastructure, to be clear on this. So what you can see here is that many municipalities, what they see as a problem is really the area of social and affordable housing. They report this as a gap very, very frequently. And also the area of healthcare is an issue for many. And in fact, the social infrastructure, this is something that we've been seeing it over the last couple of months becoming more and more important also for municipalities. Now, again, digging a bit deeper, when we start splitting up social infrastructure in some of the areas where we see gaps by the different prosperity levels across EU regions, it's also quite interesting to see. So what we did is we classified regions according basically to GDP levels. So you have the regions which have income above the EU average. Many of these are located in Northwestern Europe. Then you have what we call the transition regions here in the slide. They have a GDP between 75 to 100%, and then you have the less developed regions with incomes below that threshold. And what you see is basically that when it comes to housing, this is an issue. Well, in many of the lesser developed regions, but also in the high-income regions, which is probably a different dynamic if you think about urban property markets. But in many lesser developed regions, it's also really a problem from the municipal side. And the second area that really stands out when you split it by income is the adequacy of health and healthcare infrastructure, which is much more an issue in the poorer regions across the EU. Oftentimes, these regions are rural, and there, of course, with COVID, these gaps in healthcare infrastructure, I mean, they really started to bite heavily. So, can we move to the next slide, please? So let's have a look at the impact of COVID on municipal investment. And basically what we saw before COVID is that municipalities said that, look, what we are going to do more, what we want to do more is a lot on digital, of course, but also related to
climate. So they already sensed that this would be important going ahead. But then with COVID hitting, it's also that, of course, it came as a shock to municipal investment, and about a third of municipalities also said to us that they would change plans. Now, what we see when we look at the areas, where do they shift, is actually they now attach more importance to digital, but also to social infrastructure. So it was, in a sense, a bit of a wake-up call, just re-emphasizing that these things really matter. They shape people's lives. And another thing, maybe this is also worthwhile keeping in mind, is that for many of the poorer regions, what we see is that climate is becoming more important, digital is becoming more important, but at the same time, of course, the basic infrastructure and the gaps you have here, so roads, this still matters. So what I would like to emphasize is basically you see that shift, you see that across Europe. The municipalities, they know very well that they need to do more in the transformative areas, but then again, of course, at the local level, you may struggle to reconcile all the different needs in the different areas, particularly if you are still stuck with some gaps when it comes to basic infrastructure. And this is obviously a challenge at the local level. Can we switch to the next slide, please? Thank you. And which brings me to the point about, okay, how can this challenge be addressed? And what is important here is basically the question, how can we move from the ambition many municipalities actually have, particularly on green and digital, to transforming this into actual investment activity. And for this, obviously, what is key is the local capacity. So we try to also dig a bit deeper into this, what the municipalities are planning in the areas of digital and green, and also how their capacity compares. And on the last point, what comes out from the results is that the capacity challenge, in a sense, this distributes very unevenly across EU regions, with the capacity challenges actually being largest in places that are still, poorer in European comparison. So it actually, it's just where many of the investment challenges compound. You need to do basic, you need to do transformative increasingly, you know that. But it's a question, how can you do it with your just limited staff and planning capacity on the ground? If you can move to the next slide, please. So just to have a quick look at what the municipalities themselves perceive as investment barriers. Investment barriers, we ask about them in general for investment, and also we try to get at what is holding back investment in climate change in particular. And for investment in general, the municipalities, what they say is that obviously regulatory uncertainty, but also the time it can take is a big issue, together with technical capacity. So yes, funds are a problem, but the capacity and the environment in which you undertake this investment is quite crucial. And for the green investment, a lack of funds. We see this as an issue that is relatively prominent, but again, it needs to be thought together with the regulatory uncertainty and also the technical capacity issue. And this is key looking forward, because funds are obviously needed to address gaps, but also they cannot do the trick alone. The capacity is really something that is going to be very, very crucial. If we can move to the next slide, please, just to quickly also have the view from the firm side and what they say when it comes to investment in climate change related measures. On this, what I would like to emphasize is basically that the firms are not that different at the end of the day from the municipalities, because what they are saying is also that what keeps them from investing in these areas at this point is costs, but also regulatory uncertainty. And this is something we see across Europe. So it doesn't really matter if you're in Luxembourg or in Malta or in Romania. If we can move to the next slide, where we do see regional differences on the firm side, though, is when we look at who has already undertaken climate-related investments on the firm side. Here we see that firms in higher income countries are relatively more advanced compared to firms based in less developed regions in particular. At the same time, it's not that firms in poorer regions are unaware. A lot of them already know that this is something they need to address in the future. So you see that about 40% of the firms in the less developed regions say that we have investment planned. Now, having investment planned is obviously a good first step, but then coming back to the point raised earlier, the question is, will you be in a position to realize it? And for this, the capacity also on the firm side, plus the environment in which the firms undertake the investment, this is going to be really key. Just on digital, the other transformative area, which is perhaps also good news, and I mean, in the Romanian case in particular, I think some of the things and the developments we are seeing is quite encouraging and impressive. And one thing we do as part of the corporate survey is to look into the adoption of digital technologies. And there, actually, we see that some of the firms in the less developed regions, actually, they do a bit better than those in transition. So it's not just a question of income; it's also a question of policy actually taking action in this area and pushing ahead on digital, and this can be done. We have quite some examples on this in Central and Eastern Europe in particular, I think. Can we move to the next slide, please? Just one last graph I would like to show you is we asked the firms also about the obstacles they see in the investment environment, and when splitting this up by regions at different income levels, what I think is quite clear is that the firms in the poorer regions are often operating in a more difficult investment environment. They tend to report more obstacles, and they tend to report more obstacles really across the board. So uncertainty obviously is a big issue, but they also see more issues with regulation. In particular, what they struggle with is finance. That's more of an issue for firms in many of the poorer regions, but also the basics like the availability of transport infrastructure and energy costs. This is something many firms also experience as a problem. Even though one has to say that on the flip side, fewer of them have yet invested in energy saving measures. Now, just to conclude briefly. If we can move to the final slide, please. Thank you. To leave you with the main messages from our two surveys here. What we can see on the municipal level is that, well, investment developments before COVID, they were actually quite encouraging, picking up. At the same time, we know that there are quite substantial legacy gaps. And now looking ahead, it's of course a question what is going to happen to local investment with COVID and some of the additional challenges that come with it at the local level. That plus the twin transition, the digital and green, which is something that municipalities also need to master. And again, for this, it's a question of whether you can turn the ambition that many municipalities obviously are showing then actually into reality. And for this, the capacity development is going to be absolutely key. For the cohesion regions, for the poorer regions, there are still gaps in basic infrastructure, and of course these also need to be addressed. Ideally, one can do it in a more climate-friendly way right from the start. And when it comes to digital infrastructure, it might even turn out to be a big opportunity for some of the lagging regions. Now, what are the barriers? Well, for municipalities, yes, finance is an issue, but a lot of the barriers relate to regulation and capacity. So this is where more work definitely needs to be done. The financial support the EU provides, this is something that can help, but again, building up the capacity, which is technical, but it's also administrative. This is really key to make things happen on the ground. And the digitalization and climate change. Yes, on the one hand, it means new challenges for local authorities, increasing demands, but at the same time, I would say it can also really be an opportunity for the regions. The difficulty the less developed regions are struggling with is that, well, their levels of digitalization and climate-related investment tends to be lower at this point, and the same thing we see on the firm side. So the issue that comes with it is that in this constellation, it's obviously much more difficult to realize positive complementarities from the public investment and the private investment. And finally, I think one of the key points is really that addressing the regulatory barriers to investment, including at the local level, this is really key to unlock opportunities for green and digital, to incentivize, in a sense, also the local firms to undertake investment in these areas. So this is something that can I think make a big difference. Of course, improving the investment environment is something that takes many bits and pieces, but it's a process definitely worthwhile undertaking. So many thanks.
Thank you, Patricia. I will be the host for the next panel, but I have one question for you. Why we should be more optimistic about attracting new foreign investors in a technology field in Romania? Because this is the topic of the next panel.
Thank you for this question. So, well, on this one, I would say two things. One thing is obviously, how do you see digitalization and digital firms, and well, not only digital firms but also digitalization as a trend that certainly accelerated even more over the last couple of months with the push that COVID provided in a sense, and I think there is at the moment a lot of discussion. What can it do for regional development, and what can it do perhaps also for lagging regions? You know, when you think about shifts like working from home, might some of the people that went away for the capital come back for a while? Might they work in a place that is perhaps more remotely for 2 or 3 weeks a month, and then they go back to the capital? Well, this could be an opportunity, provided that the connectivity is good. So I think this is one thing at the say more spatial development level. On digital in general, I do think on this Romania, I mean in Bucharest, I think there is really quite some activity in the digital scene, and also we see these success stories emerging. From the skills side, I think one attractive an asset, so to say, is really that looking at advanced digital skills, I think Romania compares relatively well. So you have some specialists in the area, which is obviously key to set up new companies, to develop this thriving scene. Where I see still some challenges is when it comes to the more basic digital skills and broadening. I think this is something that is very important when we think of broadening the adoption of technologies, which is something that obviously needs to happen in many of the smaller firms in particular. So I would say there are some strengths, particularly related to digital expertise, people with very good skills, and the willingness and the ability to deploy them. Many also made some international experiences, and then they go back and set up a company. But at the same time, there are obviously still challenges with many non-digital firms, and they are a little bit out of this this development. It's important to not forget about these for overall productivity developments, of course.
Thank you, Patricia. We are going on with a new panel, and we have together with us 3 specialists from 3 organizations, very active in terms of innovation. And I invite Lara, Stefan, Antoniu, also Antonio Panait from Vastint, and Lucian Enaru, country manager at Schneider. And dear speakers, I invite you to start with good news that you have observed this year in your field related to digitalization and technology. Please give us a good sign from you. Unfortunately, we don't have anymore the representative of state. Mr. Oprea is not available anymore, but our debate will be very active. And Antonio, please, what have you seen positive in this period in your field?
As a positive note, in the last, starting 2020, starting the pandemic, what I saw positive that the technology speeded up, the implementation of technology speeded up even more than we initially planned or expected. So from development, because we are real estate developers, we have two projects, Tipuri Noi Square and Business Garden Bucharest. From our perspective, we were studying different solutions for integration of the equipments, and on a certain level we already did it, and many other developers, of course, starting with the so-called BMS, the building management system, which is the heart of the building, and then we permanently focused on adding more features to this let's say centralized computer part of the building, and then we are discussing about how to organize access only with our phone, because what is the only item that we permanently have with us is the phone. Badges we forget, we lose, and so on and so on. So that was a good moment of the market when everything speeded up. So now you can have access in a few of the buildings in the market. You can have access with your phone. So it's technology helped a lot to make buildings even safer than they were already planned. And in our case, the base build, let's say, allows us to being very advanced buildings from technology perspective, efficiency, energy efficiency, and so on. And now safety also allowed us to add more safety features to the buildings for COVID. So we already had 100% fresh air supply, which is very important when you, in today tenants requirements to, let's say, lease smaller surface, but to come with different teams in the same premises. So this is very important when you have this kind of plans for premises to socialize more. You need to have 100% fresh air. And this is a handful of buildings in the market, because this is how you lower your risks for your employees. So yes, we implemented a lot of measures for COVID and to improve even more technically the buildings due to this unfortunate situation created by the COVID. And this challenge also helped us to be even better in our buildings.
Mm-hmm. Laura,
Thank
Stefan, you have many initiatives with the aim to support local businesses also.
Yes. Let me firstly start by saying that we as Mastercard, we are a global technology company acting in the payment space. So basically, innovation and digitization are at the core of everything that we do. It is our main mission to incentivize adoption of innovation and digitization with all our stakeholders, starting from consumers, moving on to governments and to institutions of all kind. So basically, the agenda of digitization was part of our business as usual, even starting many years ago. And I would like to bring here an example from 2018, when, for instance, we organized the Innovation Summit at the Palace of Parliament, where we brought something like a showcase of the latest technologies that had to do with payments, but not only, that had to do with making all of our experiences better with the help of technology. Following that showcase, we also organized a roundtable, bringing together both public and private stakeholders, where we introduced a white paper that had to do with the impact of digital governance in Romania. And we brought to the table subjects like the impact of digitization into our social lives, into the business, and into the way the governance is being made. And even starting there, and I'm here relating a little bit to something that was said earlier in the previous discussion, we emphasized even there the importance of having digital skills taught in schools. And then moving forward, the importance of having focus on e-commerce with support for the small businesses to run their businesses in a digital way, with support for in regards of digital platforms for cross-border transactions, and then moving on how to interact with the state institutions in a digital manner to be able to apply digitally for all kinds of initiatives and even to pay your taxes fully digitally. So this is something that happened a while ago. And then if you ask me what is the good news of the recent years, is the fact that our, let's say, vision for the digitization of the economy was somehow confirmed, but by what happened in recent times. Of course, we wouldn't have wanted it this way. We would have wanted everyone to just simply see the need for digitization, but the recent times proved once again how important digitization is for all our lives. So basically what we saw was the urgent need of all companies, starting with small businesses, to shift their way of doing their day-to-day activities from the offline mode to the online mode. And if you ask me about what our initiatives in this field are, I can even name a few, starting with last year when we saw the lockdown and the impact it had on small businesses. We looked firstly at Horeca, which is actually our traditional sector. Our main partners come from this sector. So basically we were looking at the small businesses in the Horeca sector, and we see them struggle so hard to keeping their businesses alive. That's why we brought together a series of partners of ours, namely Edenred, Sodexo, and InvestRomania, which are the main players in the employee benefits industry and our exclusive partners on the card issuing side. And we organized together with an educational partner, Curizer, something which we called Horeca Împreună. So Horeca Together was the first program of its kind, which was aimed at helping restaurants and small business owners in this industry overcome the difficulties that they were facing at that time. It was an educational platform which brought them all kinds of information, from global educational platforms to local best practices and so on how to digitize their business and to be sure that they will be able to go through this period with their businesses intact as much as possible. Moving on from this initiative, we grew into more and more initiatives. Together with our partners, Panait Group and Czech Bank, we launched the platform called Localnici, which is also a platform trying to support entrepreneurs at the start of their business, start their business and move it forward. It wasn't enough to just have a marketing platform, so we also turned it into a real business product, which is delivered by Czech Bank, and it's a product for the startups. So the first year is full of support with capabilities that are brought together by both Czech Bank, Panait Group, and also by us as Mastercard via the Digitize Your Business package. And this is probably the last of the initiatives that I will mention, not in an exhaustive list. The fact that earlier this year in March, we launched this platform called Digitize Your Business, which is a local program that we manage here as Mastercard together with a series of partners. We came together trying to find solutions for the small and medium business owners to digitize their business, starting from bringing them digital signatures, bringing them digital employee benefits, offering them ways to support their employees in these complicated times to make sure that they remain safe and healthy. And then this fall, in September, namely, we added a series of partners that are bringing legal support, that are bringing PR and communication information, and also a series of places where people can work remotely if they need that. So just to name a few of our initiatives in this area of digitization and of supporting the local business environment.
Thank you, Laura. Lucian and Enaru, what is your perspective from a C-level position as a CEO in Romania? Here you are part of a giant which is present in many fields. You are active in many verticals.
Thank you for the invitation, and I would say hello to all the audience. I saw and I see that digitization or digitalization, it's many common threads. So all the discussion, you conclude last panel with the digitalization topic, and my colleagues here, they are also putting to the table the digitalization and digitalization topic. I would continue this topic, adding also electrification into the game. From Schneider Electric perspective and point of view, digitization and electrification are the two enablers critical to tackle and to address the challenges and trends shaping the future right now. From this perspective, we say that Schneider Electric is a digital partner for sustainability and efficiency, because if we are speaking about electrification or electricity, it's a must to address also the efficiency topic. I would go a little bit narrow because we are facing those days a terrible topic, which is COVID. Pandemic situation, and I would go a little bit narrow to a trend, to a specific segment in Romania which needs help, and because you mentioned about positive trends and positive sides, I would put it in your attention. And this topic is the healthcare. And most precisely the hospitals. We see those days that investments in this area are increasing. Everybody is agree that we need more and more modern hospital. So the infrastructure part is suffering in Romania. But on the opposite side, we saw in last 1 or 2 years significant investments with several hospitals, some of them brand new, some of them modernization. And we see not only the interest in investing, both private and public, in such kind of infrastructure, but also we see an interest in the quality of the investment. And also from our specialization and expertise point of view, we are very glad to see that few points are into the attention both for investors, but also from the operational point of view. I would mention few. First of all, power availability. We know with the electrical energy, of course, we know and we see how critical is for a hospital the power availability, both from the quality of energy, but also from the power availability. Second one, the electrical shocks, which are present in different kind of buildings, especially in the hospitals with different kind of equipments, equipments which are very sensible from this point of view. Third one, and we see also terrible situation in Romania, fire risks. I would not enter into details, but we all know from media what terrible incidents happened by time to time in Romanian hospitals. Energy efficiency, especially those days when the energy price has dramatically increased, is more and more needed efficient use of the electrical equipments. Maintenance and the cost control of the maintenance part is very important, not only from budget point of view, but also from the reaction time point of view. And the last, but not the least, is the conformity with the local regulation and with the special regulation in the healthcare segment. From this point of view, I would say that maybe the hospital in the healthcare segment is the most complex type of building we have in our infrastructure. On top of that, of course, we can discuss also about BMS, and some of my colleagues mentioned that. We all want in this moment people centricity. So a hospital is not anymore a place where you go and run after that. The design should be people centric and to respond the people and patient needs. From this point of view, also the digital infrastructures play important place and drives better the patient's experience in a hospital. Hyper efficient, so we discuss about energy efficiency site, but we need a platform and modern solutions are cloud-based to control end-to-end the platform, from power availability to building management, several views on consumption on different sites of the hospital, starting with the entry or emergency room, ending with the some special facilities inside the hospitals. Resiliency, it's a critical part for a hospital. So power availability, cyber security, and the critical infrastructure protection in the hospitals are not anymore an option. They are a must. Last but not the least, sustainability part. We want and we are talking about net zero emission or about green energy. Modern hospitals are able to use green energy and are able to minimize the footprint activities. So from this point of view, also hospitals are aligning on the new sustainability objectives every building has in place. This is in the few words our vision about the healthcare segment and hospitals. And my colleagues are speaking also about the new funds we are expecting coming through PNR or some other European funds.
This is a good topic because actually, Lucian and Enaru, you are talking about buildings of the future, and for this we need money, we need fundraising. And I want to ask Antoniu and also you, do we have money for this new kind of projects? Of course, Antoniu Panait, from your perspective, please, and Lucian and Enaru from this perspective of national and European funds from the governmental side. Please, Antoniu, do we have financing for new initiatives?
Of course, there is a lot of money in the market, as they say, but it's all about convincing the stakeholders to finance. In our case, the board. In other cases, the bank. It's all about coming with the good product on the market, a product that will ultimately be occupied and appreciated by tenants. Now, of course, everything is influenced by the market situation and the power of absorption of the market. Bucharest, Romanian market is still has a lot of potential to grow further. because today, if we filter the office stock in Romania, there are a handful of buildings that they respect all the measures needed for the safety of the employees. So yeah, there is money in the market, but it's all about also the market, how quickly absorbs those surfaces that they are delivered. And another aspect is regarding the rent. If the rents cannot go lower, from now on they will increase, because you cannot create or develop, let's say, efficient buildings, state-of-the-art buildings, if the rents are low, because ultimately there is no profit anymore on the buildings if you come up. In our case, we are coming with the best, whatever we learn worldwide, we implement in each new project. Doesn't matter the market. Also in Romania, the buildings we have, one of them, we have top 5, but anyway, one of the buildings is top 3 worldwide from LEED certification, green certification perspective. It's a building in United States, a building in Spain, and the third one, it's in Romania, Business Garden, Bucharest, where is the headquarters of Erste, BCR today. So all these things you can create, but you have some limits based on the market situation and market trend. But there is, to answer your question, there are funds in the market, there are experienced developers in the market, and there is still a lot of place to develop, a lot of room to develop good properties and safe buildings for the employees.
Lucian and Enaru, for public infrastructure, what do you think?
To complete, I would. There are two main areas: is public area and private area. Speaking about public area, we have a huge opportunity right now regarding the Green Deal or PNRR funds. It's depending on us to be able to quickly put the project on the table and to be able to absorb these funds. We have specialists, we have solutions, we have plenty of old hospitals which needs to be modernized. Also, we saw already plans in place, and they are designed already plans for the new hospitals. Speaking about buildings, right now we see a growing area in the logistic area, a lot of investments in the logistic area, and we see that not anymore poor or basic logistic infrastructure. It's a modern infrastructure connected into the cloud, control and followed by from the remote locations. We see in even in the commercial building sites, and my colleague Antoniu mentioned also the need for modernization and certification. All big buildings in Romania needs RED certification, and it's a beginning of the net zero emission path, which will be for all of us a challenge in the near future. So to conclude, yes, we have the money. It's depending on us if we are able to quickly put the project on the table and to be efficient to start building. Of course, this is these days, so we have also some political instability. We hope that very quickly we will solve and we will be able to start absorbing these funds.
Lara, Stefan, you are working with many fintechs. Why you are doing this? It is obvious for us, but what kind of projects you are looking for?
Thank you for these questions, but before getting to it, I would like to add something on the topic that was at hand previously in regards to the funds that are available in the market. Because we also, as Mastercard, have a say in this when it comes to the disbursement of these funds. There are indeed money in the market that are aimed both for big infrastructure projects, but there are also funds available for the smaller players, such as the small and medium enterprises, or for the end consumers, for vulnerable categories that should benefit from some kind of support. So what we see with this money that sometimes come from the local government, or sometimes they come from the European Union, the main challenge is that there needs to be a high level of control that is applied to the way that this money is actually spent. So this is where we come into play with our technology, and I can give you a very recent example in regards to the hot meals program, which was implemented late last year, I think starting September, October, and which targeted close to 300,000 beneficiaries, elderly people of 75 plus of age, who are from vulnerable categories, meaning that they have a very low income. So these people, they needed to benefit from hot meals served to them by providers in their area. So basically what happened is that all these beneficiaries received prepaid cards that were used to pay for the meals that were brought to them by suppliers that enrolled in the program. The first benefit of this program was the fact that the service reached these beneficiaries. But the second one, which was something like the ripple effect, was the fact that we saw close to 2,000 new merchants getting into the business of accepting cards. They are accepting these cards for the program, but they will continue to accept cards long after the program is gone. So we see here the first benefit of electronic payments in regards to funds disbursement from European money. Such programs are still to come, and we are very happy to see that technology is being used for this disbursement. And moving on, this is a program that was delivered into the market by our partners that I also named earlier, Sodexo and Edenred, and they are something like non-traditional players in the financial space. And this is to translate a little bit to the question that you were asking me earlier, whether we enjoy working with fintechs and how come. Yes, actually, the answer is that we enjoy working with fintechs a lot. We are actually the leading player in this space, both at European level and at global level as well. We started early, and that is why currently I think it's safe to say that 8 out of 10 fintechs is working with Mastercard. So we do have some experience in this space. That is why globally we developed a platform which is called Mastercard Accelerate, which reunites all of our programs that are designated to support fintechs. And we are looking at the fintechs from the day that they start with developing a value proposition to their go-to-market, and then to the moment where they need to scale their business. When they are just thinking about their business idea, they can use our technical resources in our developer space. But then when they want to go to market, we are here to support them. And we have for this the FinTech Express program, which is actually our way of selecting vendors that are fully compliant from a regulatory perspective, from a payment scheme perspective, and from a technology perspective. So basically, these players, we are certifying them as FinTech Express partners, and then they are ready to draft a commercial agreement with a new company that wants to go to market with a product. And in this setup, the company can go to market with the product in as early as 6 weeks, as opposed to 6 months, 9 months that it takes to get all the regulatory checks in place. We also have an example in Romania, where last year we brought to the market such a FinTech Express partner, namely Depocket, and they already have a live program in the space of healthcare claims disbursement, and another project is happening this year, and you'll probably hear about it towards the end of the year. So this is one point that we are extremely proud of. But then moving on, I was also mentioning the fact that we take care of our fintech partners also when they want to scale up their business. And this is happening through the Start Path program that we have been successfully running for a number of years, which is actually exposing the fintechs that have already a proven track record and functioning value proposition. We are exposing these fintechs to our banking partners around the world. So basically, our banking partners in Romania were already put in contact with fintechs in previous sessions, and starting with the pandemics, we see this program happening even more easily because the digital channels of interaction have made it even easier for fintechs around the globe to meet with banking and potential with banking officials and potential new partners, no matter their location on the globe.
Do you think there's room to have new investors, foreign investors in your industry? What do you believe? Because we are at the event talking about FDIs, new foreign investors. How about your field, Antoniu?
If you, in our field, foreign direct investment, if you look from the perspective of our group, we are financed by the group, and we report our the amounts to the National Bank as we have this obligation. I think it's all about how quickly we get the approvals for because it's known in Romania everything it goes very slowly from approvals perspective, and so investments are slowed down. So yeah, it takes time, but from financial perspective, we as soon project reaches that stage of approval and meaning from authorities perspective, and also from internal decision perspective, then we as soon it's approved by our board, financing is done from own equity until further notice, of course, but for the moment the investments are done from own equity. I hope I answered the question.
Yes, thank you. How about you, Lucian and Enaru? What do you see this potential of attracting new investors in Romania?
As you know, the FDI amount dropped significantly in 2021 or 2020 versus 2019, year before the pandemic. Schneider Electric is in position to support the foreign investments in different areas, and we saw in last few years investments in segments like automotive, food and beverage, logistics, e-commerce. So we are able to support and to sustain all the new projects, especially with the global companies which are willing to invest here. We have a big attraction point, which is the digital infrastructure and the IT sector. And we see also in this area an interest and investment coming. I would not be so optimistic regarding the FDI increase or the growth on this area, but I'm relying a lot on the Green Deal funds. Depending how fast we are able to implement and to put the project on the table, I'm sure everything will develop faster and faster, including the foreign investments. We can see in this moment several greenfield investments in consumer goods area, logistic, I already said, also food and beverage. We see that in Green Deal, but also in modernization of the or capacity extension of the existing factories. Special point is on pharmaceutical part, where we expect several investments due to the increased needs caused by the difficult situation we are facing right now.
Laura?
I believe that the field that Mastercard is working on is not as investment heavy as other fields that are out there. However, I can tell you from our observations in the local market that we see a lot of players being attracted by Romania, external players looking at Romania from the perspective of the market size. And I think the best example I can give you from our field here is actually Revolut, which we all know, which is present in our market for quite some time now and has proven to the rest of the fintechs out there the fact that there is a lot of interest from the local consumers to work with such non-traditional players. And they have found here in Romania one of, let's say, the fastest growing markets in Europe. Following their example, we can see other players looking towards this market as well, both on the side of addressing consumer needs, so other similar players that are coming to pitch their products to the Romanian consumers and see what adoption they get. The first impact of this is that we see a high increase, an increase in the, let's say, workforce market dynamics here, because there is a lot of request for specialists to be able to drive these businesses. But we also see a lot of players coming to address the needs of small and medium enterprises on the area of accepting payments and of digitizing their business with, software management systems for their, small ERPs for the small businesses and so on. And this is also something which is quite open for players outside of Romania, even though they do not come with the high investment that is, let's say, seen in other areas such as, heavy industry or whatever. This is a place where we see interest from foreign investors to come and try to leverage the size of the market and the openness to innovation of the consumers that are here in Romania.
What are the investors looking to invest here in Romania, in your opinion? This is a question from Andra, and we are grateful for this question addressed.
Stability, if I could answer in a few words. Stability, predictability, and less bureaucracy. I think that's the main elements, and can open widely the gates or the pockets of the investors.
I would say also the predictability, especially the predictability part. Also a good infrastructure, and we are not top of the top on this area. And from the infrastructure part, the digital infrastructure part, where fortunately for us, we are quite good and quite advanced compared to the average of European. But the predictability, it's a must.
Yeah. I would, if I may, I would reiterate what I just said earlier, because basically in Romania, for a foreign investor in a financial services field, we are extremely interested from the perspective of the market size, which is 19 million people. And another very interesting perspective to this is the fact that close to 40%, I think, out of these people are still financially not included. So basically, it's a lot of space. We have the internet infrastructure, if I can say it like that, that is would allow these people to be financially included. So I think this is an open playground for new players and for foreign investors to come in and address this market.
Please choose one vertical that has potential to be disrupted in Romania in the near future.
I would vote for data centers.
Why?
Digital is growing and growing, so a lot of amount of data are on the table. Analytics are coming because you have data, but you need to know what's happened or what to interpret them, and cybersecurity on top to better protect your assets and informations. Next, and we see it, all big players are running on the cloud, so all the big informations or data are flowing through the cloud. So starting from the facilities or factories through data centers, even the bank sectors, it's a big player on this area, are going through data centers. Data centers means internet data, cybersecurity, and the top smart cloud platforms for data interpretation and utilization. So data center from my side.
Laura?
I was thinking that I would like to go last on this, just to build on what is said before me. So,
Antonio, you have a broader perspective because you are dealing with many industries.
It's quite a good question actually, because I was thinking also about the situation with the mentioned by my colleague earlier. Cybersecurity and the data centers, I think also that they are the main elements that have to be for the future development of all industries. So yeah, I'm on the same opinion. Development of the technology is based on this in the future. So, and this hybrid working environment, it's also based on high security of the transfer of the data and so on and so on. So, yeah, I'm going around the same subject.
So building on this input, I would like to say that I'm happy to hear that this is what my co-panelists are seeing as the future of investments, because we as Mastercard, we are ready to support this evolution. We do have our data and services division, which is our advisory division, and is also bringing in Romania a lot of technology in this field, meaning data analysis, data interpretation, data security, cybersecurity solution, you name it. We have the technology and the capabilities to support the growth of such sectors. So I just wanted to make sure that we are on the same page, that this is probably the future of investment and that we are more than happy to support its evolution.
I want to conclude with a big question regarding a SWOT. In your opinion, let's do a SWOT for our country, for foreign investors in terms of digitalization. Let's choose a strength, a weakness, opportunity, and also a good thing that is happening now, in your opinion.
So, do you have a pencil or something?
We can start with the bad news in order to finish with the good ones.
Okay, some bad news. Labor force scarcity.
Yes, let's be realistic. Yes, a good one, Lucian. Thank you. Labor force,
Yeah,
as a threat or a weakness?
As a threat, I would put it.
Okay, let's choose another threat. Antonio,
Political
Laura?
instability.
Yes, good one.
Instability, that's what I wanted to, but we somehow repeat what we said before. Instability and lack of predictability for the investments is always, it's very sensitive for the investors.
Yes. And since we all agree that this is a relevant threat area, I would also like to add the fact that, especially in the financial industry, the regulatory part is extremely impactful. So this is a very sensitive area where the consumer needs to be extremely protected. And that is why, as part of the European Union, we have some responsibilities as a country. So basically everything that is decided at the European Union in terms of controls and regulation that needs to be in place for this field, it has to be cascaded down at country level. So this is a place where we need to be extremely well aware of the impact it can have on the local business, and to make sure that when it is being transposed in the local regulation, it does not limit the access into the market of various players, while also keeping in mind the consumer's security and well-being. And here I would like to add that currently the fact that we are part of the European Union is actually helpful, but I would probably build on it when you are asking about opportunities, right? Because we are now talking about threats.
Yes, in my opinion, we have also this threat regarding changings in offering subsidies for IT employees. This is a possible threat, and I will choose it as a weakness. What do you see? Yes.
Slow rate of adoption in the European funds, slow speed European fund adoption. This is one of the main weaknesses for us.
How about the main? Yes, Laura, please.
As a weakness, I would add that actually, in regards to financial education and digital savviness of your average consumer, we still need to work on this, and it's still a barrier for adoption of all kinds of services. So this is something that we need to keep in mind, to try to, turn a weakness into an opportunity, because there's an opportunity to educate these people and to educate everybody on the benefits of financial education and digital education.
Very good idea.
From my perspective, besides the European funds absorption, which is a fantastic opportunity, we also have the opportunity to be an alternative for other countries from the perspective of harbors and goods delivery. So also that can be a fantastic point for Romania if we develop the infrastructure until the side, and we develop the harbor capacity we have, but to develop further and open the possibility to transfer goods to Romania, to East Europe, and not to other countries.
So a sort of logistic hub.
Yes.
Yes, this is a good opportunity to become a regional hub. How about unseen opportunities, maybe, or unseen advantages of our country?
IT sector, which for me it's one of the best in Europe, and in fact we have a lot of players which are working abroad, or they are collaborate with several big companies. We have also Schneider Electric. We are working here with local companies which are doing great job on the IT side.
Yeah.
From the perspective of unseen opportunities, I was thinking about tourism, which is not developed to the level it should be, based on what can offer Romania from the perspective of nature and tourism. So I think it's not something which is highlighted enough or at all in at the level it should be. also from the perspective of income generator.
And other strengths, I would put the broadband infrastructure for sure for Romania.
Yeah, I would also like to mention. I would also like to mention some kind of infrastructure that we have here in Romania, and it's possible that we are not aware of it. It of course has to do with our business as Mastercard, and I am talking here about contactless adoption. And I just want to stress out the fact that while in other parts of the world, people are still using magnetic stripe to do card transactions, here in Romania, starting with January of last year, all acceptance devices need to be contactless enabled. And this is a huge opportunity, not only, for, I don't know, from a technology perspective, because what we did, we actually had a leap, a technology leap. We weren't there when magnetic stripe happened, but now we are here with contactless transactions. But this is an opportunity for the next layer of technology to be implemented very easily, because contactless point of sale, so contactless terminals, are actually also driving adoption of mobile payments. We are heavy users of paying with Apple Pay, with Google Pay, with issuer wallets that are launched by most of the relevant players in the banking system. So all of this is possible because the terminals are already contactless and they accept NFC transactions. And from this perspective, actually 90% of the Mastercard cards in circulation are already enabled with mobile payment technology, and we have seen these payments increase year on year with something like 400%. And this is probably not out there for everyone to see as an opportunity, but it's a very fast-moving business. And I think there are a lot of opportunities for new applications to be built on top of this type of technology.
Thank you. Antoniu, Panait, Lucian, Enaru, Lara, Stefan, thank you for your words. I invite you to join tomorrow also at Business Review Summit. You will hear and see entrepreneurs, executives, investors, ambassadors, but also the representatives of states. Many subjects addressed tomorrow. The first one is related to human resources, to digital nomad visa, a very good project for Romania in order to attract new labor force and specialists here in our country. Stay safe and have a good day in the next couple of hours. See you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye. Bye-bye.
name says it all. A dynamic, lively community in a productive surrounding. Hospitality is key. Therefore, our MyHive team actively provides support at all times. MyHive focuses on innovative prime office concepts to deliver excellent infrastructure to our tenants to exceed their expectations.
Thank you. From here on, it's members only. With your membership card, you are allowed to pass and enjoy all amenities. My membership is for all of those who do not need a fixed desk. You can use it at any MyHive location and get access to the MyHive community, the MyHive app, and of course, the MyHive lounges. Talking about MyHive lounges, they are perfect to take time off and relax. But wait until you have seen my desk. You enjoy the advantages of a shared office, and it's bookable from 1 month. We are on a 3-month assignment for an IT company, and my desk is the perfect match for me and my colleagues.
Hey guys, do you want to join us for coffee in the MyHive lounge after work?
Sure, why not?
Cool. Sorry, I'm in a bit of a hurry. We've got an architectural competition coming in a few days, but I'll show you my room. It's actually the perfect solution for a small team, or even a larger one. It's a private room with all the amenities of a shared office.
Thank you.
Sure. And you can book it for as little as 1 month and 2 desks. Sorry, I'm off to a workshop in the conference room. I'll see you later. Whoops.
Oh, never mind. That's the nice thing about MyHive. It's full of opportunities. We are a listed company with over 150 employees in a highly competitive market, always aiming for the top. And that's why we choose my office. We need tailor-made solutions that are state-of-the-art when it comes to interior design, top-notch IT infrastructure, and a high-level security. I have to go to a meeting. Come and join me.
As you can see, we have the costs completely under control.
Mereu implicat în coordonarea afacerii tale? Îți venim în ajutor cu pachetul pentru digitalizare de la Mastercard. Ai sprijin juridic, tehnic și pentru promovare, prețuri preferențiale pentru beneficiile oferite angajaților tăi, asigurare gratuită pentru cumpărături online, acces exclusiv în locațiile Mastercard Business și la evenimente profesionale și multe alte beneficii. Descoperă-le pe toate pe mymastercard.ro. Cere acum cardul Mastercard Business de la emitenții parteneri.
Tendința mondială actuală preconizează că până în anul 2050, aproximativ 70% din populație va locui la oraș, ridicând astfel mari probleme de gestionare a resurselor, a mobilității și a spațiului. Soluția la aceste provocări poate fi Smart City, conceptul care are în vedere funcționarea coordonată și integrarea în sisteme de comunicație a tuturor componentelor unui astfel de oraș, rețele de utilități, clădiri publice, servicii de urgență.
Într-un astfel de context, este evident mai mult ca oricând că există viață atunci când există energie. Schneider Electric produce astăzi tehnologii care asigură energie pentru viața la standarde de calitate oriunde, oricând și pentru oricine. Iar dacă vorbim despre calitatea vieții, atunci trebuie să luăm în considerare și aspectele privind sănătatea.
De câte ori ne punem întrebări precum cum vreau să arate spitalul în care mă tratez sau în ce condiții lucrează personalul care mă tratează. Statisticile internaționale arată că până în anul 2050, populația de peste 60 de ani se va dubla. Prin urmare, este evident că amplasamentele medicale vor fi din ce în ce mai solicitate. Acestea se numără totodată printre clădirile cele mai mari consumatoare de energie dintr-un oraș.
Se naște astfel întrebarea, cum pot face față spitalele unor astfel de provocări? O soluție este utilizarea infrastructurilor inteligente, în care informația critică circulă permanent direct către persoana potrivită. Siguranța pacienților, experiența acestora intraspitalicească și eficiența gestionării resurselor reprezintă cei 3 mari piloni care trebuie luați în considerare la construcția sau modernizarea unui spital încă din fază de proiectare. Sălile de operație și terapie intensivă reprezintă punctele cele mai fierbinți ale unui spital. Acestea trebuie deservite de o infrastructură impecabilă care să asigure condiții optime pentru îndeplinirea în siguranță a actului medical și de asemenea să ofere siguranță și securitate pentru pacienți și personalul medical. Schneider Electric dezvoltă soluții moderne care, odată integrate în arhitectura de distribuție, asigură aceste elemente și, deopotrivă, o disponibilitate de 99,9% a alimentării cu energie electrică.
Funcționarea permanentă a echipamentelor medicale în sălile de operație și de terapie intensivă reprezintă un element fundamental pentru îndeplinirea în siguranță a actului medical. În acest scop, trebuie să avem certitudinea că instalația electrică care deservește aceste spații este în stare perfectă de funcționare. Însăși, disponibilitatea sălilor de operație depinde 100% de continuitatea alimentării cu energie electrică. Prin urmare, orice măsură care se poate lua pentru rapida informare a personalului de mentenanță cu privire la eventuale defecte este mai mult decât binevenită. Cu surse de alimentare fiabile și un sistem de control și monitorizare complet și automat, ne putem concentra în totalitate pe actul medical.
Standardele și normativele în vigoare stabilesc reguli foarte stricte în ceea ce privește alimentarea cu energie electrică a acestor spații, iar soluțiile Schneider Electric au transformat tablourile de distribuție clasice în instrumente de management al energiei.
Tabloul electric aferent aplicațiilor din amplasamente medicale grupa 2 are următoarele particularități. Zona de alimentare, zona inversor automat de sursă, zona transformator de separație, zona consumatori vitali, componente Smart Panels, exploatarea tabloului, activități zilnice de verificare a rezistenței de izolație, semnalizare vizuală și sonoră a defectelor, localizare extrem de simplă a circuitului defect.
Pe lângă întreruptoarele automate de protecție, tablourile electrice Smart Prisma Med includ și interfețe de comunicație Ethernet de tip Smart Link, care permit monitorizarea de la distanță a stării de funcționare a instalației electrice prin simpla vizualizare a unei pagini web incluse. Accesul la această pagină web se poate face de pe orice calculator, tabletă sau smartphone cu o conexiune la internet, prin folosirea unui username și a unei parole, asigurându-se astfel confidențialitatea și securitatea informațiilor. Apariția unor defecte poate fi semnalată prin intermediul e-mail-urilor transmise direct administratorilor și personalului de întreținere, funcționalitate pentru care nu este nevoie de un server dedicat și nici de achiziția unui soft specializat. Beneficiul major al implementării acestor soluții avansate vizează creșterea disponibilității sălilor de operație și terapie intensivă. Odată informat, personalul de mentenanță poate fi proactiv în intervenție, iar pierderile financiare pot fi astfel optimizate.
Deci, cui servesc spitalele? tuturor. Noi suntem beneficiarii serviciilor pe care le prestează și suntem primii interesați în infrastructuri moderne, confortabile, în care să ne simțim în siguranță și în care procesul de recuperare să fie cât mai rapid, iar experiența cât mai bună.
Spitalele sunt clădiri publice esențiale ale unui oraș inteligent, iar modul în care înțelegem să le construim și să le dotăm este o măsură a gradului de civilizație a societății. Construirea sau renovarea unei astfel de clădiri este un moment de mare responsabilitate atât pentru cei care decid investițiile, cât și pentru cei care le proiectează și le execută. Schneider Electric este partenerul care vă oferă soluții viabile pe termen lung, ale căror avantaje justifică pe deplin investiția nesemnificativ mai scumpă față de alegerea unor soluții clasice. În acest fel, putem contribui împreună, responsabil față de prezent și viitor, la progresul și bunăstarea comunității din care facem parte.
Vă invităm să fiți aliații Schneider Electric în implementarea unor soluții avansate în spitalele noastre, în beneficiul nostru, al tuturor.
My parents knew from the first moment what they want. A beautiful house by the forest, a peaceful family life, and a girl. They had me. Born and raised here in the most beautiful place in the world. Home, as I call it today. I grew up with Mishu, my four-legged friend, and Misha, the little tree planted by me and my father in the yard of our house. Nature and fresh air gave me energy to explore everything that moves around me with my lifetime friends, and to enjoy walking to school in the mornings. And sports. Here I enjoyed the largest and greenest playground. Here we gathered the most beautiful memories with parents, grandparents, and friends. Here I learned how wonderful it is to make friends for life. I admit, growing up here, I always felt that the world is mine, that I have everything. And I grew up having my family close. My life story is like a marathon. It started out full of energy. And as I go along, I'm still recharging my batteries. From everything I see and live, here and now, every second. I'm Toma, and my story and my community can be yours too. Just believe in my world and visit Amber Forest. I'm waiting for you home.
Today is a very special day. After 2 years of intensive design and permitting work, we have recently reached our first major milestone when obtaining the building permit for Miro on June the 30th.
Today marks another important milestone.
In starting up construction works, we are turning all our dreams and ideas into reality.
Miro is being born. When conceiving Miro, our focus was and is on the people, understanding their needs and creating a place where they don't have to work, but want to work.
Designing an office building is a very challenging task these days. It has to tick all boxes, and tenants have no mercy. We are talking about flexibility, sustainability, efficiency, and on top of that, it has to look amazing.
This translated into an A-class office building, being both BREEAM and well certified.
Miro.
Well-being.
Sustainability.
Miro is truly the office for the future, focusing on being well, being connected, and being seen. But above all, Miro aims to be a project where the landlord is a true partner for its tenants.
See you at the opening in 2021.